very good morning to you and Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. This is the 26th day of June 2017, just 42 days left to the general election. A busy day for the ruling party, Jubilee Coalition, as it rolls out its manifesto detailing why it's best suited for the job of governing the country. Andrew Chen will be joining us shortly with an update from Kasarani. Also in studio, we have three guests and they will help us discuss the manifesto and how different the promises are from those made in 2013. My name is Ken Mijungu, and also in this hour we'll have all the entertainment. Ken Mijungu is at Serena Hotel, where the Mandera leaders are about to have a press conference. We'll be crossing live to Ken Mijungu as soon as that press conference is ready. Andrew Cheng is at Kasarani for the Jubilee Manifesto launch. It's happening a bit later on, but he's already there. And as I mentioned in studio, we have Daisy Amdan, Nelina Wako, and Gabriel Muduma. We'll be discussing with them all the issues surrounding the manifestos. But first, let's take you back to Kasarani, where Andrew Cheng is on standby. Andrew, good morning, and tell us what to expect. First, this launch will be coming a little bit later on, but talk to us what to expect in this launch.
Well, thank you, Ken. As you've just mentioned, the launch, there has been a bit of conflict on when it will exactly begin, but now we have been informed that the event will begin at about 7 o'clock in the evening, probably targeting the prime time. That is when the manifesto launch will take place, and the doors are still closed to the public, and that will happen. It will be opened later on in the afternoon, probably for people now to start getting in and to start start gathering here at the Kasarani Gymnasium, where the manifesto launch is expected to take place. Now, probably some of the key promises to look forward to and probably an elaboration on how they will be implemented is the two main ones that the Jubilee has been talking about, the Jubilee Party has been talking about, and that is the free secondary education for everybody, that has been for all from Form 1 to Form 4, and then the one which they announced last week in their tour of Meru County, and that is paid internships of 18 months for all those who are graduating from universities and from tertiary institutions, technical institutions, I beg your pardon. So those are just a snippet of some of the key things we will be expecting the party to elaborate on, and how they intend to fund all this. Remember that one of the major things in the country, or one of the arguments in the country, has been that the wage bill is unsustainable, is too high. There have been numerous strikes by public workers all over, and some of the critics of the pledge made by the Jubilee Party have been wondering how they will manage to pay for the 100,000 interns for 1.5 years every year going forward. Yet it has been difficult managing the wage bill, be it from members of parliament, be it from doctors, be it all cadres of the public service, taking in a lot of money from the public wage bill. So those are some of the key things we will be expecting the party to elaborate on, and probably give more pledges and probably explain how some of the ongoing projects that they have right now. Remember, the SGR is still yet to be completed. Just the first phase has been done, so we also expect them to give a highlight on how to proceed with that. And then there are some promises which have not been kept from the previous manifesto. Remember, there was the pledge to conduct the 5 stadia, which was not done, and so many others which have not yet been implemented. So we will be expecting to hear from the party when all those are made later on in the evening from 7 o'clock. Right now, the preparations are still going on. We've seen some workers just taking in the Jubilee paraphernalia into the gymnasium for the preparations. We are trying to make our way in there, and probably in another couple of minutes we will be inside there, and just to give you a preview of what the preparations are going on and what to expect later on in the evening, Ken.
All right, Andrew, it's 7 pillars once again. What is different from what they did in 2013? Right from the top, mine is an inverted manifesto. Sort of infrastructure this time around, Andrew, is coming number 5 in the pillars, and the other time it was quite prominent right on top. For you, what is so different with what they're doing in 2017 if you compare it to what they did back in 2013?
Well, what is different for me is I found the internships to be very novel and very interesting because making, because now if you look at it, there is free primary education, there will be free secondary education, and then after, the only thing probably that is not free is the university, which is a loan, the HELB loan, which people have to pay for. And then now there will be again paid internships by the state. So it is interesting where the country is heading into, such that by the time you get into adulthood, if you are a bright child who will manage to get into the public system, you will probably have a very good advantage. It will, as the Jubilee Party has been saying, that it will also be a big benefit and a huge burden lifted off from many Kenyans in terms of education. So I think the new thing for me has been the emphasis that the party has put on education and opportunities for graduates going forward when they're looking for jobs going forward. How they will fund it, given the problems that are there in the country, is probably an interesting one. And maybe again the decision to leave out to tone down on the infrastructure is probably because of the debt that the country is in. Remember, the SGR has, the Jubilee government has been accused of raking in so much debt. So probably that's one of the reasons why they have toned down on the huge big budget infrastructure projects, and maybe now going for some of the social issues like the paid internships and the free secondary education. Those are the more highlighted at the moment, and probably food security going forward, and then now the reduction in big infrastructure projects. Remember, there is also the problem of food security, and probably we will be waiting to hear from them on that. In all the Jubilee campaigns, they have not spoken about food security. I was in central Kenya, in Nyeri, in Murang'a, and in Meru. Not a mention of food security. Yet in many places the cost of living is high, and even the subsidized unga by the government cannot be found anywhere. So we will be waiting to hear from them on how to go about that. One of the pledges which they did not keep was the irrigation of more than 1 million acres of land, and the Galana Kulalo is the phases, the model farm which was being developed has not yet even been completed. So that's one of the downsides. Other than the building of the 5 stadia, that's one of the issues that they have not kept. So we'll be waiting to hear from them going forward to see what they intend to do about that, Ken.
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. And as they keep off food security, the talk around food, Andrew, the agenda that the opposition is using to hit back at Jubilee is food. We'll be linking back with Andrew a little bit later on. But first, let's go to the Serena Hotel where Kenneth Muredi is standing by. Ken, good morning once again. And what do we expect from these leaders as they address the nation this morning?
Well, good morning to you, Ken. We are here at the Serena where we are expecting the Jubilee leaders from Mandera County will be having a press conference anytime from now, and they want to articulate on issues that have been brought out by their competitors on the other side, that is the Economic Freedom Party, whereby there are rumors that, or there are claims that about 50,000 people are missing from the voter register, and it is a concern to the other side because they do claim that even some of their leaders who had addressed a press conference here at Serena maybe 3 days ago were insisting that their leaders' names were missing. When they went to counter-check during the period that was given by the IEBC to counter-check whether their names were in the register, they did find out that even the governor candidate for the Economic Freedom Party himself was registered here in Nairobi in Lang'ata, that is Hassan Nur Hassan. And they really want, they even went to court, according to them, to make sure that this process is stopped, and they say that they have managed to even have one of the constituencies there in Mandera not tallied, and they do want to know what is wrong with the IEBC and the tally, because you see, Ken, by the claim that about 50,000 people are missing in a county whereby 172,000 people are registered as voters, is shocking and worrying. And that is why we do expect that in this press conference, the side that belongs to the Jubilee wants to respond and actually maybe counter what they have been saying. Because the claim was that the IEBC was favoring their friends in the Jubilee Party. You'll remember that it is a tough duel in that county whereby there was a breakaway team that is now being supported by the elders, that is the elders from that community, and they're saying that they're supporting this team that is led by Hassan Nur Hassan. Now, Ali Roba has said that he is not going to hear any of that and has formed a team within which they have taken over Jubilee in the county and they want to run affairs. So it is a battle that is now fashioning out that one team will say this, today, then the other team will say the other thing the other day. So it is a battle that is also being fought on the media front, and we do expect to hear what will their response be to these allegations. You remember that they have really kept this a guarded secret. Yesterday they were also expected to have this press conference, but they decided to push it to today so that they can give time to their members who are celebrating Eid al-Fitr, and all of them are here, and we do expect that maybe later they'll be joining the Jubilee team when they'll be launching their manifesto. So it is a battle of who says what, and none of it is confirmed as of now because we've not gotten an opportunity to speak to the IEBC so that they can confirm this. We're also expecting that the IEBC register that was being audited by the KPMG, that register is going to give the way forward so that Kenyans can know whether it is true that 50,000 people are missing as is being claimed, or it is just political gimmick just to try and whip their members to come out and vote on the August 8th. Also, one of the other things that came from the other team, that is the Economic Freedom Party, despite the fact that they had insisted that they will support President Uhuru Kenyatta in his re-election come August, they said, because the other team is led by Bill Okero, they said that they are reconsidering their support for President Uhuru Kenyatta as the elections draw near. You'll remember that it is only 42 days to the elections, and at this critical time, when they are saying that they are reconsidering their steps and their support for President Uhuru Kenyatta, it might be detrimental to his support maybe in that region that voted for the Jubilee government in 2013 almost to the last man. 98%, according to the records, voted for the Jubilee government. So it is a game of wait and see, and whether they are going to live up to their threats of leaving the Jubilee party or leaving President Uhuru Kenyatta and going it alone. So as of now, we are just waiting to hear what this press conference is all about. Also, Ken, before I come back to you, remember that Mandera has been one area that has been hit hard when it comes to terrorist attacks. One happened about 2 weeks ago and led to the deaths of so many people, including security officers who are in the governor's entourage. So we do expect that these are the things that are going to be spoken about here at this press conference, apart from them bashing their friends in the other team, that is the Economic Freedom Party, Ken.
Right, Kennedy Mureithi, very comprehensive indeed. Looking forward to that press conference later on. And before we set the agenda here, Kimani is with me in studio with all the entertainment. Kimani, what do we expect later?
I can tell you this was a big entertainment weekend because people were partying all weekend because today was a holiday. And our entertainment team was out there. We have, but ranking was here over the weekend. We have the story. We'll bring you sights and sounds. He was performing at the Kiza Lounge. Big Nigerian star. And also another big Nigerian star, Wizkid. Wizkid has a BET now, an International Act Award from the BET, also Stormzy won. I'll bring you much more winners from the BET Awards, which happened over the weekend. And also from the RFUA grounds where the Kenya versus Uganda game after party was happening. That was a big party, like one of the biggest party over the weekend. I'll bring you that and much more. Also the top 3, the music you need to be listening to if you're at home. Yeah, that will be coming to you at the top of the hour in entertainment.
Right, Kimani, thank you. Looking forward to that. And now, 42 days to the next general election, and as such, the main political parties are lining up to make their manifestos in a bid toward the electorate. First up is the Jubilee Party that is expected to unveil its manifesto today at Kasarani, and Richeng reporting it will be around 7. Now, the manifesto is said to be linked heavily on job creation, education, health, food security, among other key pillars, all of which resemble the 7 pledges of the Jubilee coalition made to Kenyans back in 2013. Darius Gashanja now looks through the list of what to expect and if at all Jubilee has lived up to any of its promises in the last 4 years.
It has been 5 years since the Jubilee coalition stood in unison at the Kasarani Sports Complex and promised Kenyans to deliver on 7 key pledges touching on a safe Kenya, transformational leadership, a food-secure Kenya, empowering the youth, water and electricity for all, a healthy Kenya, and social justice. With a general election around the corner, the Jubilee coalition, now Jubilee Party, will be returning to the same venue with more or less the same script, similar cast. On the 2017 manifesto list is food security. Here, the party intends to boost agricultural production as well as increase arable acreage through irrigation. Although the government has played a key role in reviving the ailing Mumias Sugar Company, the government was caught flat-footed by the ravaging drought that affected most parts of the country, resulting to massive losses of livestock, crops, and in some cases, lives. The ripple effects of the drought have been felt on the ground, with the latest being a scarcity of maize in the country that has in turn translated to lack of unga on the shelves.
There are lessons which have been learned. There are mistakes which have taken place.
The other pledge making the list on the manifesto is health, where Jubilee promises to continue giving support for maternity and maternal health. The party also promises to roll out free medical cover for citizens above 70 years. Kenyan mothers have enjoyed the introduction of free maternity and maternal health care, with the number of deaths during childbirth reducing significantly. In the same breath, the health sector has also witnessed the most strikes during the Jubilee administration, with the longest strike being that of doctors that lasted 100 days. The nurses' strike is ongoing, and clinical officers are threatening to go on strike in the coming days. Job creation makes it to the manifesto list. Here, the Jubilee Party targets to create lots of jobs for the youth, including an 18-month internship program for TVET and university graduates. All this in greater partnership with the county governments. This is what replaced the 2013 pledge to build industrial hubs in all counties with workshops and ICT facilities. The youth have been great beneficiaries of the Youth and Wezo funds, continuing to offer many an opportunity to access capital for investments and business. However, the NYS scandal that saw billions of shillings misappropriated from the project goes on record as being one of the biggest scandals to rock the Jubilee government. Education is a key pillar in the Jubilee 2017 manifesto, where the party plans to launch the free secondary education program from January 2018. Continued focus on higher education, especially TVETs and university, is on that list. Those free laptops to every Class 1 pupil promised by the Jubilee Coalition in 2013 were reduced to tablets, with the gadgets currently only available in selected schools across the country. The party is also focusing on the expansion of school infrastructure to ensure secondary schools have the capacity to accommodate more students.
When we ensure that every child born in this country who is in primary school goes into high school, that will be transformative. It has not happened in the last 50-something years. It is what has defined the difference between Kenya and South Korea, Kenya and Singapore, Kenya and Malaysia.
The Jubilee Party intends to continue putting emphasis on expanding connections to electricity, particularly in rural areas, and the completion of the second phase of the SGR, that is, connection to Uganda. Though great strides have been made in connecting more households, the cost of electricity is still high, with some parts of the country still grappling with frequent power blackouts. The first phase of the SGR project from Mombasa to Nairobi has been completed and already news amidst criticism of being overly expensive. The second phase that will connect to Uganda is on hold due to conservationists going to court to block the rail from passing through the Nairobi National Park. A plan to address human housing issues both in terms of quantity and quality, that is giving affordable, safe housing, is also on the Jubilee Party's agenda this year. The rising cost of housing has rendered many people homeless, hence increasing the number of street children and families. The increase of urban dwellers has also reflected on the need to increase housing, and with it, the need to address perennial water shortage, especially in the capital city. Lack of clean water has left many susceptible to waterborne diseases, such like cholera. The Jubilee Party intends to continue making government services more accessible to all Kenyans and also making the government more accountable to Kenyans. This sticks out as the biggest hurdle for the Jubilee administration, with major corruption scandals including the NYS, Ministry of Health, Eurobond sagas reported during its tenure. These cases, among others, have put Kenya on the map as being one of the most corrupt in the world. However, the Huduma centers set up by the administration have brought services closer to the people and increased access to government services, a far cry from the past. 7 pledges are what the Jubilee Party is articulating to the electorate against the performance of a similar 7 from the 2013 manifesto. Gladys Gashanja, NTV.
And that story by Gladys Gashanja will form the basis of our discussion. And as I said, we already have our guests in studio, Daisy Amdanyi, we have Nerima Wako, and Gabriel already seated. We'll be putting that perspective next. But first, the Jubilee team campaigning for Nairobi governorship has now hit out at Peter Kenneth, a Jubilee rebel, calling him a spoiler and a project of incumbent Governor Evans Kidero. The team led by Mike Sonko also accused Governor Kidero of ruining the city and not living true to the promises he made to the people of Nairobi. This as Kidero questioned Jubilee senatorial candidate Johnson Sakaja's academic qualifications, as Kennedy Muredi now reports.
The battle for Kenya's capital, Nairobi, gets murkier with the elections approaching. Those perceived as frontrunners are turning on each other in a contest that is now almost getting personal. At a church service in Kawangware, the county's Governor Evans Kidero chose to tear into the Jubilee team led by the county's Senator Mike Sonko, who is their governorship aspirant, calling them a bunch of failures. Kidero also specifically tore into the Senate aspirant Johnson Sakaja, calling him an academic dwarf.
Bwana Sakaja, mbeleni alikuwa anasema nataka kuwa gavana. Na nilimwambia siku hizo, Bwana Sakaja, wacha kupoteza wakati, wewe huwezi kuwa gavana kwa ajili huna degree. Miaka ya 2007 alifanya subject 7 akadunda 4, akapata E kwa 4. Aliambiwa arudi repeat, alikataa. Hata wa leo, if I'm lying, I'm challenging Sakaja to display his degree certificate.
I'm challenging him to any test, on any matter, at a day of his choice, at a place of his choosing. Kidero is a spectacular failure. Despite his udaktari and all that, he has even failed to lift garbage. Even Aladwa, who didn't get to Form 4, performed much better than him when he was mayor of Nairobi. So he needs to tell us how this udaktari of his has helped us in the city.
So he should stop to divert attention by kuingisha Sakaja na mambo mingi. Let him deal with me, because mimi ndio dawa yake.
According to Team Nairobi, as they call themselves, Kidero was only going the personal route because he had not worked for the people of Nairobi.
The mistakes Kidero has committed in this county are unforgivable.
The team that was today holed up in a strategy meeting within the city also took time to respond to claims by one of Jubilee renegade governorship aspirants, Peter Kenneth, who accused them of being Deputy President William Ruto's projects. Last week, Kenneth alleged that Jubilee nominations were not fair and had been pre-planned with the aim of rigging him out.
Yeye ni project ya nani? Yeye ni project ya Ruto. Acha tuongee vile ukweli iko.
Yeye aache mambo mingi. You just saw him the other day akisema sijui navaa suits, nafanya nini. Hiyo ni sawa na kuni provoke, but unajua nilifanya governance and ethics when I was in Kemu. I will not abuse him. Sitamjibu na matusi. Alirefer mimi to as a mkora. I will not respond to that.
So as you're calling Sonko project ya Ruto, that is fine. He should be project of Ruto. He must be. Because Ruto is our deputy president. Ruto, but you are Peter Kidero. You are now PK. Peter Kidero. You are now you are definitely showing us that you are the project of Kidero. So let us see which project will win.
Peter Kenneth, who he is Christian now, Peter Kidero, understands very well he cannot win. But then he also does not want Jubilee to win. The narrative that he was a spoiler in 2013 is clearly being, those who have been saying that are being vindicated.
With now 43 days to the elections, the political temperatures are rising, with the main goal being the opportunity to govern the about 4 million city dwellers. Kennedy Muredi, NTV, Nairobi County.
All right, my guests are ready to discuss our first topic of discussion, which is the Jubilee Manifesto launch. But I see them very excited with that story. Probably you want to comment on that, Tim. Peter Kidero. All right, let's skip that. Let's discuss more important.
Oh, really? I mean, for me, I'm just shocked. You know, we are just saying that, isn't it just the other day that most of these guys were actually Team Peter Kenneth, and they were championing. I think I remember Rachel Shebesh being in the forefront of championing Peter Kenneth as governor. So when has he moved from being their project to now being Kidero's
since he lost to Sonko, and Sonko became the Jubilee candidate.
And because he's standing his ground, because he feels he lost unfairly.
Unfairly, yes.
You know, I think this is one of the biggest problems that we have in Kenya, is that we don't respect people's right to make decisions. The way political party candidates are going after independent candidates, you know, threatening them and abusing them, you know, sell your agenda. I can't believe they have called a press conference to insult candidates.
You know, probably it's because you see the way Jubilee Party has embraced the independents, and NASA on the other end have completely refused to go with the independents, calling them spoilers. So only individuals. The other day, Andrew Ching was in Nyeri. I spoke to Andrew, and he was talking about how the independents are shying off from the presidential rallies, not because the president doesn't want to see them there, but because of the candidates who are nominated within the parties don't like to see them.
But listen, independent means you're not affiliated to any political party.
But they support.
Listen, you can support.
Okay.
And I agree with the candidates in the political parties. I would be offended if you and I are going for the same seat, you're an independent, and you want to come to my party rally. Why? That's what being independent is. Being independent means you run on your own.
Okay.
So, but then the problem is that many of these party candidates are not respecting the right of independent candidates, so that they're insulting them, they are threatening them, they're giving them ultimatums, and IBC remains silent in the face of this. Independent candidates have every right to run for political office. It is a provision of the Constitution of Kenya, and it must be respected. And IBC really need to rein in the political parties. Political parties, let them sell the candidates, let them sell their ideas, but they really must lay off this thing of threatening independent candidates.
The only bona fide independents, they say, are the people who, from the beginning, said they will be independents. You agree, Nelly?
True. I do agree, and there are people like, I guess, Professor Wainaina, who's running for presidency, and he started that way. But from what we've just observed, I think it's safe to say that the politics in Kenya, there are no real enemies. I think it's one of the countries where we watch individuals party hopping so much until almost 30 parties. Or even if we look at the leaders now that we're looking in the presidential seating, are people that we were talking about in 2013, in 2007, in 2002, but just with different alliances. So there's almost no loyalty.
Only the forest has changed, right, Gabriel?
To a large extent, I agree. And you see, apart from that, there's an element of not understanding, you know, and Ken, I think that has been the price of our instrument for far, far too long. I'm not taken off totally to see somebody like Honorable Shebesh and Sonko, you know, in a press conference. I mean, you've said it you've put it quite correct, that there are no enemies, so what you call, you know, true friends or true enemies. So the more things, you know, change, the more they remain the same. But really, from where I'm seated, it's really funny for somebody like Mike Sonko to attack Kidero and fail to understand that he also had an element of oversight on that particular person. So really, if you're going to point at Kidero's failures, you must also count yourself as a failure in that grand scheme of things. So, but I still don't think that Peter Kenneth is, should be, I mean, I don't think that press conference that I saw, they should be pointing guns at Peter Kenneth. I don't think that's their man yet. Because really, if you look, I mean, if you really want to tabulate what happened, you know, it began with Sonko himself telling the whole world, you know, that if this by-election does not go the way I want, he himself said, the nominations, yes. Rather, he himself, and I quote what he said, that at an independent, You know,
he'll be on the ballot.
Exactly, he'll be on the, so I do not see why you would chastise Peter Kenneth. Really,
probably they view Peter Kenneth as a spoiler. You have to have the final word in this.
You have to tell me how he's spoiling. I mean,
because they're going to divide votes in Jubilee, the Jubilee supporters and voters. Because if they had a single candidate under Jubilee, then Sonko would have an advantage. But they're going against 2 Jubilee against 1 NASA. So if Peter Kenneth was not there, Peter Kenneth is spoiling in that. He's taking a little of Jubilee votes and leaving for Kidero the solid NASA votes, right?
No, I mean, you have to look at it, okay, in one way you can look at it that way, but calling somebody a spoiler who has been given the mandate, like Daisy has said, under a constitution break-off, and then saying that he's spoiling votes to who? What if, just think about it, what if you have people who've seen Kidero as having failed, who would want to vote for an alternative leadership, and he happens to be Peter Kenneth or Mike Sonko for that matter? I mean, I don't see how you would call him a spoiler just because you think he's coming to eat into your vote, or any other independent. I mean, so it's I don't think it's even a catch-22, so to speak. I think he has the right, and I don't think that's a person they should be aiming guns at. I mean, Sonko is quite popular, and I think he needs to use that popularity that he has to convince people that he is the man. At this point, I don't think Peter Kenneth is his great enemy as people wanted to make him.
Concentrate on Kidero.
Totally.
Well,
totally.
Well said. Daisy, Nerima, and Gabriel, welcome. Let me welcome you. And let's discuss about the manifesto. And just over 5 years ago, this same team, with the exception of Charity Ngilu, stood at Kasarani and gave their manifesto, sold their manifesto. And key in their manifesto that they sold 5 years ago, on top, right from the top, we had a Safe Kenya, right? Remember that was late 2012 or early 2013, I can't remember. And Safe Kenya, and straight after that, Westgate happened and all these things happened. The second one was transformational leadership. Third was a food secure Kenya, was the third pillar. Empowering the youth was the fourth. Water and electricity for all, fifth. A healthy Kenya, sixth. And social justice was the seventh. Now, look at their current one. Number 3 becomes number 1. Food security becomes number 1. Right? And then transformative leadership is nowhere as much, but job creation comes, which I might add at empowering youth, which was number 4. Job creation comes to number 3. Sort of what I'm trying to mirror here is an inverted pyramid. Correct. They have changed their focus. I have a school of thought that argues that this is how they should have begun. Do you agree, Daisy?
First of all, I think that manifestos don't mean very much in this country. Given that even as you spell out the promises that they made in their commitment through their manifesto in the last election, they have not met many of those commitments.
Okay.
There are several of them they have not met. So on the issue of whether they should have started the way they are starting now,
the way they are ending now.
No, well, starting, because they are proposing, these are new promises for the next dispensation.
But they're going for the last 5 of 10.
They're for the next dispensation.
Yes.
So we have, our dispensations are every 5 years.
Yes.
So we have every 5-year dispensation. So it's really, they're starting
another
off,
start.
so it's something new. But I think that perhaps they are seeking to build on what it is that they did not achieve in the last, in their last attempt. But I think also they must answer questions as to why they did not achieve that. Food security is at the top of their list right now, mainly because UNGA has become a crisis. Actually, food and food security has become a crisis in this country.
I'll stop you. Andrew just reported that in their political rallies, they have not spoken about food once. How comes in the manifesto it comes first?
That's what I'm saying, that manifestos don't mean anything. This they are going to read out.
Okay.
On their campaign trail, they don't address themselves to any issues. Actually, they spend most of the time attacking their opponents and finding fault with their opponents. But the issue of food security for the manifesto, because you need a platform with which to run, and of course these platforms are what we call the manifestos. So you must look like you have a plan.
Okay.
So food security is their plan. But let me remind you that food security was one of the key pillars in their last
number 3
in their last manifesto. And not only that, I took the liberty of actually, just looking at the commitment they made, because one of the things that they said when they talked about food security in 2013, they said that Kenya would no longer be dependent on rain for agriculture, and that they were going to transform Kenya and ensure that Kenya would be safe and that no Kenyan would die from hunger. And to do that, they were going to invest in irrigation and subsidies. So in the year 2013-2014, the financial year, in keeping with that goal, they allocated 8 billion shillings to irrigation, to irrigation projects.
1 million acres.
They were to put 1 million acres under irrigation, but 2 billion of this 8 million went to agribusiness so that they can create markets for those goods, and 3.6 billion to the Galana Kulalu scheme, with the rest going to the various irrigation schemes. 2014-2015, they allocated a further 9.5 billion shillings to ongoing agricultural project, 3.5 billion to Galana Kulalu, 3 billion for inputs and subsidies, 2.7 billion for the strategic grain reserve. That was in 2014-2015. 2015-2016 financial year, they allocated 20.8 billion shillings to agriculture and irrigation specifically. 4.9 billion shillings went to subsidize fertilizer and seeds, 1.6 billion for strategic grain reserves, and the remaining monies to irrigation. So the question that we must ask is this. Already, they allocated, the government allocated money in the budget.
Close to 50 billion.
50 billion to 2017, 2018, by the way, they are saying that they expanded the national irrigation scheme by more than 27,000 acres and allocated 4.1 billion to subsidize fertilizer and a further 1.3 billion to strategic grain and 0.1 billion to the mechanization of agriculture. So this is a lot of money that has already been allocated during this term towards irrigation. So the question that we must ask is this: what has happened to all this money?
That money?
Where did this money go? Where are these irrigation schemes? Because we were told later on that Galana Kulalu is a model farm. Please remember that we have the KARI, Kenya Agricultural Research Institute. We have ADC farms. All these serve as model farms. I mean, in terms of looking at how seed will perform, where outputs, inputs, what inputs you need to get maximum outputs. That's what those research institutions are there for. So you cannot tell us that it has become a model farm, although I know that Galana Kulalu was being done under the ADC. So the question that Jubilee must answer before they talk about food security, because one of the things they're telling us about food security in their manifesto, and I'm sure they're going to speak about this, is about irrigation.
Increase arable acreage through irrigation.
Okay, and that is exactly what they've been doing, and I've told you.
Yes,
and you
can check.
You can check where has this money gone. And this is what they must answer, because if already we put money into irrigation, several billion shillings into irrigation, and the result was the government actually their reasons for the food shortage and the famine crisis, they gave as rain. They actually said it was drought. You know,
very specific.
Yes, very specific. So I think these are questions that
they need to answer. We'll be discussing this, and just hold that thought, because I want to give them an opportunity. But I'm told that the Mandera leaders are now speaking. Let's listen in, and then we come back to this discussion.
Tunawaambia poleni na panapo majaliwa, we will resiliently move through this challenging time together. I would like to start with explaining the relationship between EFP and Jubilee. Previously, the current EFP team were part of the Jubilee team, who, after assessing that they are unable to go through successive party nominations, decided to decamp and form a small party called EFP to vie. And the formation of EFP was largely because of fear of political survival. In the recent past, the EFP leadership have been giving a lot of insightful statements from one baraza to the other. I refer to the recent press statement that was led by none other than Senator Bill Okero, that gave an allegation that over 50,000 votes are missing from the register of IEBC. How they ended up getting the IEBC register to verify that 50,000 votes are missing is something that we need to get some explanation of from this EFP team, whether they have illegal access to the IEBC server, because as far as we are concerned, and the information we have is the voters register has not been finalized yet and released to the public. We are reliably informed that they later went to IEBC after having claimed that their names were missing even at the EFP leadership level. And shamefully, they found out that their names were in the voters register of IEBC. That allegation that Mandera voters amounting to 50,000 are missing from the voters register is an unfounded allegation, as wild as the allegation given by Senator Bill Okero recently when he discussed and put the entire nation on attention on matters of the mass grave in Mandera that never was. We believe with conviction that we have, similarly to what all the other 47 counties have, we have some challenges in relation to issues of voter registration that we have raised official complaint with IEBC as the political leadership of the county, and that sufficient evidence has come out indicating that the EFP party were behind some fraudulent transfers of voters in Mandera, which affected sitting Member of Parliament, Honorable Mohamed Abdi Haji of Banisa, and two sitting MCAs, Honorable Barre Shabura, who is here from Kilwehiri, and Honorable Faisal of Mandera Township, whose votes were illegally transferred from Mandera, from Banisa and Mandera East respectively to Mandera North illegally without their consent. And I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to IEBC for having taken up the issue of the complaint very seriously and sharing the same with DCI, Directorate of Criminal Investigation. And we know and we have information that 5 IEBC clerks have been put behind bars, one of which is a very close relative of Senator Bill Okero, linking Senator Bill Okero directly to the fraudulent transfer of voters in Mandera, and coming out and speaking as loudly as he always does to try and hoodwink the general public of Kenya about some malpractice has taken place. There are channels that are available for using in terms of addressing your complaints and issues of concern. We, the Jubilee leadership, have channeled our complaints to IEBC, and we are closely following every day with the progress of the issues that we've raised in relation to the MVR2, and we are getting progressively advised this issue is getting attended to, and we are aware in public that some registration clerks of IEBC have been put behind bars, numbering 5. That this allegation that what came to our attention was some transfer of voters, illegal transfer of voters, but something that is within the reasonable range of complaint. For example, in Banisa, it affected directly Honorable Mohamed Abdi Haji and his supporters, which means it's deliberate effort by individuals within EFP to try and disenfranchise voters aligned to Jubilee. Recently, to be very specific, 3 days ago, the EFP leadership at Sir Ali Muslim Club in Nairobi called their supporters under the leadership of Senator Bill Okero and incited, and were in possession of audio recording of the same. And we will gladly share with members of the press that audio recording for you to get someone who can speak the local dialect to translate for you directly what those leaders were doing, which is direct incitement of the public into violence. Others calling directly, take the law into your hands and attack Jubilee leaders wherever you find them. And this, we have a recording of the same. It's not an allegation, it is factual information that as it has happened recently. We would like to request the NCIC team and DCI to investigate these issues, because we cannot afford to have political processes that are going to be marred by tribal conflict as a result of incitement by individuals within Mandera County. We have refused. We will not allow it. We will like the respective organs to take the necessary action required for purpose of making sure they deal with these people. There is nobody above the law. Senator Bill Okero must be brought to book in issues that relate to direct incitement of the public, and the other EFP leaders must also be brought to book. We will give the video recording. You will get it directly in order to make the voice recording and video recording where we have the video recording, in order to make sure that both NCIC and DCI and members of the press, you have an obligation to make sure you bring this to the national limelight when political leaders think or believe they are above the law in terms of insightful statements that they are openly making in public barazas. The political threats given by EFP in relation to Jubilee, which repeatedly the irrelevant Senator Bill Okero, who has no political footing in Mandera, in giving threats against Jubilee, saying we will decamp, is nothing but a hoax. It's only for their own political survival that they ended up pleading to support President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. They tried to dare, they have abused the president in public, the deputy president, and asked the Jubilee leadership many times. We've dared them to attempt to go to any other party. We know the ground is very hostile for any other political party, and we believe with conviction that they will not sell any other presidential candidate other than Uhuru Kenyatta in Mandera. So giving empty threats when you know very well you can't sell any other presidential candidates in Mandera, your own political survival as EFP is hanging by the thread. You move away from Uhuru Kenyatta, you know you're doomed. We dare you to try and attempt to sell any other presidential candidate. We give confirmation and commitment that the people of Mandera are behind Jubilee Party and the Jubilee leadership, the party leader and his deputy, and we don't have any waswasi at all. We advise the Kenyan public, and most particularly Mandera people. Last general election, we suffered profusely issues in relation to tribal conflict. That is why the Jubilee leadership, just like it's happening nationally, with the president and deputy president, the Jubilee leadership at the county level have brought together all clans in Mandera, the Gare, the Godia, Murele, Kona tribe, Marihan, others, and the non-locals in Mandera under one umbrella of Jubilee. We do not. The idea of negotiated democracy, locking out this clan or that clan, is an idea that belongs to Stone Age. In modern day democracy, there's only one issue that can survive. The public have a right of choice. We have presented ourselves as Jubilee leaders together with the rest of Mandera communities to the public of Mandera to decide who they want to vote. Now, any attempt to try and give threats, you know, in an attempt to indicate, to share, you know, manifestation of your internal frustration is very unfortunate, because there is only one credible process, which is free and fair electioneering process that we all need to abide by. You as a political party, EFP, present yourself to Mandera public. We challenge you to a free and fair election in Mandera. We challenge you away from any insightful statement in order to make sure that we coexist peacefully through integrated society in Mandera. You cannot attempt to try and you know, coerce the public into electing any leader that is not of their choice. I have that much to say. I will I would like to finally conclude by saying Senator Bill Okero is known in Mandera as a very insightful leader whose political survival is pegged on sponsoring controversies in the county in an attempt to find relevance himself, because he can only find footing under controversial, insightful environment. And this is a statement of fact that can be corroborated by the public in Mandera. There is a reason why he could not stand up and contest away from this issue of negotiated democracy. We cannot be intimidated by a weak leader like Senator Bill Okero, not the president, not the deputy president, not the Jubilee leadership on the ground. He is known for infamous hiring of goons to disrupt electioneering processes in the county. Unfortunately, he has costed, he is not a candidate himself, he has costed the candidates of Jubilee a lot of votes because of the candidates of EFP a lot of votes because of the insightful statement that he makes every time he stands in Mandera. Thank you very much. I would like to give the chairman of NAMLEF, who is also the chair of Team Justice, the coalition of the political communities of Mandera together. Haji Abdullahi, karibu.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, much has been said by the governor. I think he left very little to be said. But we have to touch on one or two issues which are of concern to us, as Kenyans first, and secondly as the people of Mandera. Over the last 1 year, as constitutionally allowed in this country, the people of Mandera were involved in an election process of choosing who their leaders are, people who are vying and supporters of the people who are vying. Regretfully, a team that wanted to impose its will on the people of Mandera, calling itself the Council of Elders, decided to muzzle the people of Mandera, wanted to block the people of Mandera from having access to political parties of their choice by declaring themselves that they were Jubilee and only them will be able to choose the people of Mandera. Fortunately, the law of the land does not allow that, and Jubilee as a party did not accept that, and they were challenged to a contest which they could not accept. So they decided to abscond and went and formed themselves into another party. It is their constitutional right and they are allowed to do that, and we have no problem with that. However, we witnessed over the last 12 months, through propaganda, through social media, through public forums, utterances that border on incitement to violence. We are not new to violence in Mandera. The year 2012-2013, we witnessed a lot of bloodshed of our people, which was brought about by utterances similar to what is taking place today. Ethnicity was promoted to a level whereby hatred was built and we shed blood. We want to assure the people of Mandera and the people of Kenya that is history. We will stand firm And when I'm speaking like this, behind me is a representation of the people of Mandera, of all, and I repeat, of all the different communities of Mandera. We have decided to stand solidly together in unity. People are free to go and contest. People are free to stand for different positions with different political certificates. However, the choice of selection and election for the leadership is of the people of Mandera. And the people behind me and the people of Mandera will elect on the basis of individuals, not on the basis of ethnicity. Having said that, it was very much of a concern to us that statements were made which took us very, very close to violences. False statements were made that some communities were attacking other communities across the border in Ethiopia, so that violence will be imported into Kenya. We thank the community of Mandera for their resilience. They stood firm, they refused.
Heated press conference there by leaders, Jubilee leaders from Mandera, and the main subject of discussion is the character and the person of the Senator Bill Okero, and allegations of flying left, right and center. They want action taken against Bill Okero for very, very many things that Ken Mijungu will be elaborating a little bit later on. But first, we take a short break here. Remember, my guest is still here, and we're discussing the launch of the Jubilee Manifesto. It's about 20 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll proceed with this discussion. Stay with us. right, welcome back to NTV Today. And we're discussing the issues of Jubilee Manifesto launch. And in studio with me, two ladies and a gentleman, Daisy, Gabriel, and Nerima, joining us to discuss the issue of the Jubilee Manifesto launch. Let me get the discussion of Daisy, because we began with Daisy, and take it to Nerima. Nerima, tell us, from you, what sticks out? I know she has outlined how Jubilee has been implementing the manifesto, but to her the concern is a lot of things that have not been done and a lot of explanation that still needs to be done before even this launch today.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Daisy and echo on in terms of, in 2013 they were big on transparency and also dealing with corruption. And another thing was they highlighted youth empowerment. They were talking about new stadiums and also education and also access to funding. So as much as they can bring up the youth fund and the Uwezo fund, we are avoiding talking about NYS scandal. What went wrong there? And are you willing to speak about it and fix that issue? Because you cannot leave a hole and expect the problem to go away. And if we talk about healthcare, which is another thing that they're talking about, Afia House, we're talking about scandals that we're not putting to the table and being open about, because they said they were going to deal with corruption, but they have a problem dealing with corruption. So if you have an issue with your previous manifesto and you want to continue your term, I think what you need to be doing is engaging with the public. This is where we went wrong and this is how we're planning on fixing it, instead of using the same lingo, because right now you notice they're a bit mute when it comes to youth. They are not as loud as they were in 2013. And even if they're talking about paid internships, how much is it going to cost? Where are you going to get that funding from? The devil is in the details. And that's what people are going to be looking at.
Okay. The question is, because there's this school of thought also that argues that if they have been unable to implement some of the core money things they promised back, will they be able even to finance this 18-month internship program, and from what source?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a lingering worry for a lot of us, especially young people. Because if you look at their portal and they talk about, they promised 1 million jobs every year. And now they're saying it's 800,000. But the detail that they don't inform you quite much is that it's in the informal sector. So it's not really formal employment. You know, so how are they going to sort that out? So it makes you living as a public, can I trust this government to carry on with this manifesto if when I look at their previous one, they're not doing too well?
Okay, having looked at the highlights, Nerima, this job creation, and that's where essentially the youth are considered, would you argue there's something tangible for the youth in this manifesto? Just the highlights before even we look at the nitty-gritties and go down to the details later in the evening.
I want to say that yes, because the unemployment rate is quite high. And there's no doubt about that. But when we look at young graduates, 1 million graduating a year, and their only option that they have is internship, it's better than nothing given that. But I think we need to focus on things we were talking about earlier, like agriculture. Perhaps there needs to be more incentives for young people to enter the informal sector and focusing on that instead of internship office jobs. Not all of us are going to be able to have those. There's just no employment.
Looking at even the number of graduates, let's take this to Gabriel. Gabriel?
So, well, let's begin by talking about the internship program and where the money will come from. Now, I've seen a similar model take precedence in countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, and really what happens, it's not that the government will give you money, but the government will give tax rebates to the companies that will hire you. It comes almost to what you would call, yes, it's a government-run program, but it's really not what you'd expect as government giving you money. No, if, for instance, you are in ICT, I'm just giving you a scenario, and you go to a company like Safaricom, what the government will do, it will find out from Safaricom how many interns do you have in your company and how many interns did you have in this financial year. And then based on that, because if you remember, Daisy, back in when you were interns, we were getting a stipend, just for your fare and things like that. So what kind of payment are we talking about? But once they get to know that probably you're getting fare, you're getting some small money, and more than that, you're also getting the experience. Because that really has been actually dicing out the youths in a lot of employment areas. You go to a place and before you say cut and a half, they tell you we need somebody with 5 to 10 probably years of experience. So really it's a good place to start, but where people may, actually have a huge or a serious argument is where will the money come from? There won't be what you'd call the government giving you directly money, but it will be subsidized on taxes. That is what I believe is going to happen. But again, we have to wait and see how that program will work. If it works, if it's going to work effectively, then I can guarantee you it's going to, hold a lot of people coming, out of the universities that we have. But then again, there is something we must talk about. Unemployment. And you see, it's a reality. And I agree with many people who have said that. I also agree with the economic indices that unemployment is a challenge. But Ken, the challenge today and where we are heading, I would not call it unemployment. I would tag it as what you'd call unemployability. All right? Many people may not understand that, but are the people coming out of our institutions, are they employable? Do they have what it takes to add value in society, to have the quality and the assurance of taking this nation to the demands of the 21st century? I keep talking about that. Take a country like India. India and Dubai, and I'll give you these scenarios very quickly. India realized that they are giants in medicine, and they can actually work and measure their niche on technology. And those two disciplines, they've done it very well, in that they realized we need to start getting more money from outside. Any sick person today who needs a serious opinion medically, where are they flying to? India. Look at the kind of technology, Microsoft, Oracle, Google, name them. Most of their technical advancement comes from India. Why? Because this is a country that has shaped their niche in matters employability. All right? What does the world hold out there? Kenya, we are still fighting on locality. We are failing, and quite very quickly failing, on what you'd call the universality. When I talk about a Kenyan graduate spending time learning things like anthropology, going through disciplines that nobody will hire you for, and the world's and her demands are becoming complex by the day. What are we? What's the churn rate of our young men and women who are clearing campus? So that must come into play. We must ask, where are we heading in matters of the 21st century? And then we'll start understanding the kinds of disciplines that we need to be teaching. Let me tell you something very quickly, and this is something people don't talk about. The world today, Daisy, they orbit on almost 4 disciplines. Mathematics, biology, chemistry, and physics. In fact, as you look, Ken, in this studio, those are the disciplines represented. That is why when somebody comes from the first world countries, I actually did a lot of stay. I lived, and went to school in Wisconsin, which was the heart, the farmland for America. And so farming, I saw the technology induced in farming. Here we are still so backwards, all right? I would have loved for, yes, I know we go out. I know we have all these retreats that our MCA go to. But yet what they bring home is the kind of technology that we should be encompassing. Because technology will really help us. And I've given you the 4 disciplines that are shaping the world. So when we talk about us being left in agriculture, it's because we are doing things the wrong way. Agriculture, when we go back to how it was supposed to be, it marinates on 2 things, Ken. Number 1, it revolves around the population. 1993, how many people were we? We were about 28 million. Fast forward to today, we're 28 to 45 million. Now you would ask, the arable land in our country is still 20%. 20% arable land. And it's shrinking by the day, Daisy. You know why? Look at Kiambu. It's becoming a concrete jungle by the day. Look at Kitale. Concrete jungle. We have not moved, all right, seriously to garner the arable land. Get a serious footprint in that particular element. And that is why when we talk about going to get more arable land, it is still a question, not for an administration, not a single administration. No, let's not get it twisted. We are talking about 4, 5 administrations. Kenyatta, the first president, through Daudi Kabaka, he sang about a song, and probably you may remember that song. Mzee akasema turudi wapi? Mashambani. Moi came up with, let's plant trees. Tuzuie mmomonyoko wa udongo. If really we took cognizant of these things, pangeni uzazi, we are not listening. Those are some of the things that have caught with us. Now we are in a panic mode. There's no food, there's no food, there's no food. We will not get it right until we look at the key ingredients that have brought us, Ken, to where we are today. That is where we need to focus on.
My question then would be, your focus is very broad-based.
Right.
I'm looking at your kind of submission in relation to what Daisy said.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking already, we are lost.
Totally.
We are lost totally. In terms of we are focusing on things, and yet down here we haven't sorted out anything.
Totally. Exactly.
But we still have these printouts and
Yes.
these manifestos that have to be launched. But she says they make no sense.
Exactly. And that's why Daisy gave, you saw the numbers that she talked about in terms of billions. Half of Kenyans today don't even understand, Daisy, that agriculture is a devolved function. They don't get it. We're just looking at one area and say Gulalu, Galana Kulalu. But hypothetically, Ken, what if each county, because now this one actually brings to the table why governors should be sensitive to the economic of our times. These people should be educated. They should understand where this nation is. They should actually understand, be privy to the issues of food security. Because if they replicate the Galana Kulalus, imagine we have 10. Just in 10
But
counties.
even the first one is not even a success.
But it is because we are not dealing with the fundamental issue.
Exactly.
One of the biggest problems that we have in this country is corruption.
Yeah.
Because at the heart of it all is corruption. Even when you talk about the concrete jungle and all that, that's lack of planning. So that we are not planning. We just churn out manifestos because they sound good, they sound nice, but at the end of the day, we do not follow through. Because for me, I think the most important thing, any manifesto, any political party or coalition seeking to lead Kenya must have a manifesto that shows us how Kenya will be positioned for comparative advantage. Internally, as a country, remember we have a blueprint, a development blueprint called Vision 2030.
Correct.
Vision 2030 encompasses a wide area of development agenda, but it is founded on 3 key pillars: an economic pillar, a social pillar, and a political pillar. Now, all these must feed into each other. So when we talk about now devolution, the first thing that we should be seeing, the leadership from the presidency in being able to guide the development agenda. Every county has an integrated development plan. All these integrated development plans must feed into Vision 2030. When the CDF, all these CDF projects must feed into Vision 2030. When you talk about reforming our education system is the incubator of the human resource that will drive that vision. And therefore, the subjects that are being taught in schools, the training, teacher training, all those must feed into Vision 2030. But now what we have is very ad hoc, planless, just throwing words out there that sound good, but at the end of the day, they mean zero. They mean nothing.
Daisy and Gabriel, you have succeeded in confusing me the more.
With
your argument, you've succeeded. Let me bring this home. Just stemming from, I wanted to talk about education, the fact that both teams are big on education, because they know there's a catch in education and health. Even before you talk about food, give people education. Right now in the country, people are hungry for education, then food, then the other things feed in. But let me bring something in to Wako. The other thing that I see the other side trying to do is to segment this country. Instead of putting one manifesto with the national outlook, they're trying to segment it, because what my county, Migori, needs is not what Nairobi needs. It's not what Isiolo needs. It's not what Garissa needs. So how will that work out?
It's not going to work out, because you can't be solving issues that you're not aware of. But there are campaigns, like, I don't know if you've heard of G-Activate, where they're looking mainly at the youth, and they're collecting data. I think it's going to be launched July 4th, of the issues that are facing youth in the different counties, because they figured that young people have different issues as well. according to different counties. In Western, for instance, they said it was health. A lot of the people there are either suffering from HIV and AIDS or young teenage pregnancies and lack of accessibility to county hospitals. And so for them, that's the main issue. It's not necessarily employment.
Okay.
So it's going to be difficult for especially these two governments that we're looking at who are fighting for the presidency to focus on a national cohesive manifesto without looking at young people. You cannot forget the fact that they account for 70% of the population now. And if we're talking about voting, 35 years old and under, between 18 and 35, currently I think there are 8.9 million. So if they do decide to vote, they're the ones who are going to select the president as a bloc, if they choose to. So if you're going to completely ignore this constituency, how are you going to solve their issues and their problems?
Okay, so let's go back to education, or you want to comment about that relationship?
She's right.
Okay.
No, she's right.
But it still bothers me, by the way. It still bothers me because I'm looking at NASA and how NASA has been pushing it. Not even NASA. Look at the president today. I think he's somewhere or he's taking a rest because of the launch. But wherever they go to a place, they tend to speak to the needs of those people. Then nationally, they broaden these needs. But that's still, you guys are saying it does not still cohere with what we want.
But we have representation at every level, okay? Remember that even within devolution, we have this unit that is called the summit. The summit sits the 47 governors and the president. That is really for the purposes of being able to plan in a more cohesive manner, bringing the various issues from the different counties onto the table and having a blueprint towards how to address these issues. Meanwhile, some of those other issues, individual challenges, can be addressed at the county level. Don't forget we have county assemblies, and the county governments actually do have resources and powers to actually address many of those issues.
You know, when you, Daisy, you talk about the summit, what I picture in terms of what I have seen characterize our political landscape is complaints after complaints. I'm imagining 47 governors sitting with the president.
Correct.
Each will be talking about what I want. It will not be about the national, the general outlook of the country. It will be specific to their counties.
And that is why leadership is needed at the top to be able to guide whatever it is those needs, because everybody has needs. But remember, you must prioritize them in order of priority, because the government can't solve every problem at the same time, but they can prioritize them so that you have maximum impact. But when you have politics that is just driven by selfish greed, you know, and this is at all levels, where everybody is looking at what's in it for me as an individual, so that we have these incestuous relationships where you have serious conflict of interest, so that we are not getting the best that is available out there as a country. We have all these, you know, tenders that are at the county level, at the national level, but it is the people in government. It is these politicians that are getting those tenders. You know, and so for me, I think that's why I'm saying that we must address the issue of corruption. When you look at issues, the job creation or at least the unemployment problem, Jubilee actually had a good plan with AgPro, the access to government preferential tendering. By the way, the potential for AgPro, together with Uwezo Fund, Youth Fund, and the Women Fund, to create jobs and actually begin to transform this country was huge. But instead, what we did, number one, we got people who really don't qualify beyond being, yes, I am a woman, and getting the tender. But really, you don't qualify because you are not that bracket that really needs that economic empowerment, okay? So we had, you know, so cronies and relatives being the ones to get those tenders. And then we were creating tenderpreneurs. I mean, just think about it. If government is the biggest market, if they were to be committed to this plan and say, okay, Nerima, we are going to give you the contract for furniture, but that furniture must be from here, Kenya, so that you have your workshop where you have your carpenters and everybody working on this furniture to produce, to supply that order. Instead, what it was is, I give Nerima the tender, Nerima gets onto a plane off to China.
Brings them from China.
And brings it in from China.
Forgetting that even our prisons have done very well. Look at Parliament. It's one of the best fitted parliament I have been to.
And if you remember, long time ago, all government furniture was actually made by prisons. And it was solid, very, very good furniture. They even have a showroom, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
They're up at Community. If you want to buy stuff, you know. So they actually have it. So government could have used AgPro, Uwezo, and the Youth Fund to actually encourage industrial growth.
But look at the first 2 years, what happened to the Youth Fund, you know, Bruce Odhiambo and the whole thing. That's essentially what happens in this country.
And nobody, please note, nobody has been arrested.
Yes.
Nobody.
Even the former CEO Florence?
Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been jailed because of
probably jailed.
Crimes. No, it is the same thing. You look at NYS, you look at the health scandal. I mean, this is serious.
Okay.
You know, because this is the money that is being taken away from all these sectors by individuals who are known. And the government is not doing anything about it.
There are the government. Let's talk about, we've succeeded in speaking about three things, food security, and we've also spoken about job creation. Let's talk about education now. And I want Nerima to go first on this. Education is a huge thing. One promises beginning of September, wants to take government free secondary education, and the other day they explained it's not just free secondary education, it means uniform government, school, books government, everything essentially government. You will go through school without paying anything. The other one says, no, don't just speak. These things need policy, they need planning. You can't tell us you're just coming to do it. Us begins from January. And it's a huge thing. They're going to talk about it today.
I think, one, we need to be honest with ourselves. Education is only useful if it's utilized. And this, you know, when Gabriel was talking about the internship program, one thing that kept ringing in my head is mentorship. Because as much as we have young students with graduate degrees, I've had a number of them confess how they've never attended a class, but they have managed to achieve that certificate. That's a fact of Kenya.
And employability, that's what he was speaking about.
That's a fact of Kenya.
Yes.
So even if we have internship programs, we have people who cannot even write a paragraph, an email. So how are we giving them these opportunities without actually knowing for sure that they are capable of them? So we need to go back and look at that. And when you have people who are only in the education system because they are looking futuristically, it's for them to have a business. When we look at countries that education is for you to venture into it on your own, read widely, know more, expand on your knowledge. When we're not investing that in our children, how do we expect a country to prosper? And that's one thing that I feel is lacking with our manifestos. A lot of them will talk about grandiose, you know, promises that they're going to make, but these promises will not be achieved if young people do not own them. It's going to be them to carry those promises forward. So when we look at countries like Sri Lanka or even India, as mentioned previously, they are focusing on how their youth can come up with new ideas. But what you're seeing even in our political parties, young people are being choked. They're not even speaking up or being in the forefront when it comes to ideas. Or you have even 2 young youth wings in one party. You find this division. And so when you are instilling in young people that you don't have to work together, and there's no futuristic plan or strategic plan for our country, how do we expect to prosper as a nation?
Okay, and still on education, I want to talk to Peter Mwangangi, who is in the course with the Eid Baraza. But before I speak to Peter Mwangangi, Gabriel, the last manifesto was also big on the education sector. And one of the things they promised was the laptops. Now they are tabs. But they had an explanation for this. Daisy will say, you know, you haven't done this. Please answer to this first before we move on. But this time round, they are also big on education, and they are making all those proposals, the launch of free secondary education, focus on higher education, especially TVET and universities. But talk to us briefly before I talk to Mwangangi about the fact that they did not deliver, but they had an explanation. We cannot give you laptops or the tabs before we connect you to the electricity grid.
Well,
very valid explanation.
It makes a lot of sense. And number two, it makes a lot of sense. And number two, I think when you look at, and this one, I give them clear props, all right? Probably many other areas they've failed. But when you look at the tabs, I told you it is a direction. It is a journey. Where are we heading? All right? When you look at a laptop, really, and you look at the tab, where, I mean, which is more modern? All right? And number two, Ken, very few people. I told you last time I was here, I think I wasn't doing it, but I was somebody else. But I was telling them there's a knowledge that demands responsibility. How many people in Kenya know that those tabs are actually connected locally, that you have two institutions that are working on them, putting them
content.
together.
Okay.
To putting them together,
Okay.
the raw hardware itself.
Okay.
JQuad,
They're being assembled
yes,
locally.
Okay. Very few people know that. All right. Now, it is like telling me, and this I was arguing with somebody this morning. It is like telling me when someone tells you, I promise to give you a Nokia 3310, and they deliver an iPhone 7 to you. You start kicking and saying, no,
where's my Nokia?
Where's my Nokia?
Where's my Nokia?
That's what I want. People, we must understand, we must understand why it's a, and if many schools have not been connected, and by the way, somebody was telling me the last mile, even before Kibaki left, the onus was to connect almost all public schools.
But the last mile was never their praise. This is the World Bank program.
Exactly.
Yes.
So there has to be the first phase of connecting all schools before you deliver all the labs. That makes sense, as you have said. But education,
what if it's an excuse?
Okay, they've delivered. They've delivered quite a huge, substantial, in matters of hardware, and the fact that they are being assembled locally, that's another plus. You see, Ken, I like building on a good idea. If it's a good idea, let's build on it. And you see, the problem we have what you call, and again, it may appear like somebody may be holding brief for the government.
Okay, go ahead.
But when we build on a good idea, all of us, you may recall after 2007, 2008, we did not have an opposition. You may recall very well.
Yeah.
And at that time, I thought this is the time to leapfrog. But we never did that. I go back to what Daisy said. Corruption again ingrained itself. So the issue of building on a good idea should start now. I would love for the opposition to say, hang on a minute. This technology is benefiting the Kenyan child. We need to support it to the core.
Okay.
Let's not put opposition in each and every stance.
I still have questions around that.
If an idea is working, let us support it wholly.
I agree with you, and I have a question. And when I come back, Daisy, from speaking to Mwangangi, I'd like you to begin from the point that both NAT, they are the people, the stakeholders,
right,
and KUPPET are saying, Mr. President, the 15 billion reallocated to employing 90,000 teachers. Is that something that might feature in this? So when I come back, I'd like to speak about that. But first, let's cross over to Mombasa. Good afternoon, Mwangangi. Yes, it's afternoon. Good afternoon. We understand you are at the Eid Baraza. Please tell us what is that? What's happening?
Thank you, Ken. Yes, this is actually, and it's usually an annual event whereby residents come to interact with their leaders, both religious and political leaders, every year after the Eid prayers in the morning. And it's usually sort of a religious function, but also political function. So residents have been here. This event is being graced by the governor of Mombasa, Hassan Ali Joho, 2 MPs, that is Rashid Bedzimba of Kisauni, as well as Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir of Vita, but also we have other leaders from the religious part. That is the Chief Qadi Sheikh Ahmed Modari is also here, and we are expecting them to be addressing residents shortly after the recitation of the Quran, as well as the singing of the Kaswida and all that. But remember, when you look at the history of the previous annual events, it has always been political, and this is the first. It was during such a meeting that the governor of Mombasa, Hassan Joho, publicly dismissed the then County Commissioner of Mombasa, that is Nelson Marwa. And today we are expecting him to break the silence. He's been away for about 10 days. He was out of the country for another religious function, but he's now back. And also remember, during the time of Ramadan, the leaders here in Mombasa have been sort of restraining themselves from engaging in confrontational politics and all that. But we expect this meeting today to set the tone for the campaigning period, which is also ongoing, but now after the Ramadan period. Remember, the governor of Mombasa, as well as the 2 men who are seeking to replace him from the office, that is Suleiman Shabal of the Jubilee Party and Hassan Omar of the Wiper Party. They were together this morning at the Ronald Ngala grounds, and they appeared to embrace each other, but we do not know whether that was for the life, for the long haul, or it was just for the moment. So we expect to see what Governor Joho will be saying here. Remember, yesterday, the three candidates, that is Shabal, Hassan Omar, and Hezron Awiti of the Vibrant Democratic Party, they were accusing the governor of denying, of threatening the companies that issue that give them space for erecting billboards and all that, and they were saying that the governor has threatened those companies with the cancellation of their licenses if they put up billboards for the three governors. The county has already denied that, but we are expecting the governor himself to comment about that allegation and different other issues that have been said during that period. Remember, Ken, when the governor was away, the other candidates have been took advantage of it, and they have been vigorously campaigning at the grassroots levels and trying to upstage him. And we are trying to see what the governor here and other leaders will be saying. Ken?
And we'll try and get back to you. In fact, that issue of the billboards is big. But I saw yesterday you spoke to their communication department. You spoke to Richard Chacha, and there was an explanation, Mwangangi, which I agree with for a fact that the billboards are booked well ahead of time. And in the fallacious report by NGOs, they also mentioned that as a huge thing. The candidates who are complaining that the billboards are being hoarded, particularly with the county government. So that's a huge thing that you're looking out for, right?
Yes, Ken. Remember, the county government is Chacha, that is Richard Chacha, that is the county director of communications, was saying they booked these billboards, about 21 of them, about 2 years ago, and they have booked the space up until the election time. So, Ken, it's the county is saying it's a matter of the other candidates not planning early. So we expect to see how that plays out today, Ken.
Thank you, Peter Mwangangi. Mwangangi, Peter, reporting live from the coast. And that issue of billboards, it's real. I remember I have a brother who was running somewhere, and he booked his billboard 6 months in advance. So by the time the other candidates were looking for the billboards, they couldn't get it. This is a real thing. It's planning, but we're not going to discuss about that. Mwangangi will tell us the story. Let's speak to Daisy. Just respond to my question on education.
Well, I think that Nat and Kupeta, right? Because, you know, one of the issues that they have been decrying is the shortage of teachers.
Yes.
Okay? So as the government makes this commitment, they must also address the challenge of who is going to teach these students, the remuneration, because you know that this has been a long-standing battle in Kenya, the teachers versus government in terms of remuneration, in terms of upward mobility within the teaching fraternity. So these are the issues that they must also address. It's not just to tell us that they are going to provide free secondary education without telling us how they are going to ensure that the gaps that are currently there within the education system are going to be plugged. And as Nerima said, the devil is in the details. The other thing that they must tell us is how they plan to finance it, because one of the things that is hardly being talked about is right now we have free primary education, but there are so many challenges already associated with free primary education, and among those challenges are the costs, just the overheads that the schools are having to deal with, so that you have schools that have been, the water supply has been cut off for non-payment. Some of them also have challenges with electricity. So that brings also to question the issue of the standard of the standards of education and the general standards of hygiene that we're subjecting the children to. So that when government is planning for this, you know, to subsidize education so that every child can get a free primary and secondary education, but what is the quality of education they are getting? What are the standards? The other thing that we must also address ourselves to, the issue of teachers. If you look at reports on the teaching fraternity, you have a lot of absenteeism, right? Among the teachers, you have a lot of absentee teachers. And I think that NAT have been asked, you know, to address this issue because of the poor remuneration. You have teachers who are moonlighting, you know, so that they are here, you know, giving this a light touch, but also seeking employment or remuneration in other private schools where at least they are paid better.
Yeah.
So while it is a good thing that the government are seeking to do, this, right now we know that the government is facing a serious cash crunch. Okay? They are looking to stem the government wage bill and also look at government spending. This is not a cheap undertaking.
For both of them.
For both.
Yeah.
You know,
especially
so,
for a group that has not tested the policies that exist right now.
So for me, while it is a good, I mean, the aspiration is good, but they really must tell Kenyans how they are going to address it. And then that also now brings in the issue of taxation, because remember, when government is making this commitment that they are going to give free primary education, Ken, it is yours and my money that is going to be used to pay for these services. So it means taxation, because where is government going to get the money for this? Where are they going to get the money?
Very true. And we have 3 more areas to discuss. I'm told we have to pay the bills. When we come back, I'd like us to talk about the other things, infrastructure. They're turning down, putting it at number 5, and they're just pushing to expand the connections to electricity, which they're already doing, by the way, and completion of the second phase of SGR. Very already, it's very controversial, you know, the second phase, and governance and public service, and not to forget housing. So when we come back, those are the things we're going to discuss. But first, we take a short break to pay the bills. Now, the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime is today scheduled to release the World Drug Report 2017, which essentially gives highlights of the global drug abuse and illicit drug trafficking situation and the trends. This is done every year on such a date, as the world commemorates the International Day Against Drug Abuse. So we'll be telling you about what's called IDADA shortly with Dan Mule, who is in Ndumberi. But first, let's come back here and discuss the issue of infrastructure. And let me start with Gabriel on the issue of infrastructure. This is key in the last election, and they have done a lot. In spite of the fact that SGR people were saying it was expensive and anything, people are clouding their vision with the fact that this is revolutionary also. So that's a positive for them. But the fact that they are pushing infrastructure to number 5, which is essential to expand connections to electricity, particularly in the rural areas. They've done a lot on that, and they still intend, because it's one of their achievements. And look at everywhere they go. President Uhuru Kenyatta, Sistema Tumeleta. So they've done well in that. And they're also planning the completion of the second phase of SGR. Very contentious at this point of time. But this is the one that connects you to Uganda. But essentially, this is what they're going to do. In your opinion, infrastructure, would they still go big on infrastructure, or right now they should be first consolidating the gains they have made?
I think, Ken, number one, somebody said that a good idea must give way to a better one. When you look at infrastructure, the direction that we got from Mwai Kibaki, I think that is what the Uhuru administration has taken over from. And to be honest, I think they've really done well. Really, there's nobody to compare this with. I mean, when you talk about the Nusum Mkate government, they did what they could. But I think the Uhuru administration, they've taken it a notch higher. Now, what does that mean for Kenya? And why are we having so many people fight a good idea like the SGR? It is because of the monetary aspect that comes in, but you see very few people understand the economics behind the SGR. Let me tell you something, Ken. The government, not in Kenya or any other country, if probably I may say this, governments are not in the business of making profits. All right? So when somebody sits and says, when will we recover that money? That is not for the government.
Recovery in terms of paying back, not recovery in terms of having it
paying
as part
back
of our taxes.
In time, in time. If you look at it and the way we've personally been able to rack numbers, it is not really something that cannot be done. It will be done over time.
How long?
But actually, longevity should not come in, Ken. That's the problem. Longevity should not come in. It doesn't
matter if it takes 100 years.
What matters is the connection. For instance, I went to Kitale some time back, I think 3-4 weeks ago. And I met somebody who was telling me, he's a serious maize farmer. He was telling me I had a problem of transporting maize from my granary to the market. And it would take me literally almost 8-9 hours because of the bad road. And that was not only it. It's the amount of money I used to pay for my brake, for the car breaking down. Now, I'm able to run, and there's connectivity in terms of the road network.
Okay.
So I told you a good idea should be encouraged. Probably where Jubilee may suffer and where they are suffering is the element of corruption and wastage.
Okay.
Probably that's what people are looking at. But the government needs to build. And then me and you, we need to trade on that particular infrastructure, where we are paying taxes, and that is how the government builds payback. What I think we've gotten wrong, Daisy, and this is why I think majority of Kenyans may not get it right, we encompass our thinking that this is money that must be paid back, and we are being put into stress. Let me tell you, getting loans is not a bad thing. And that is why somebody will tell you, as long as you have somebody willing to give you money, it seems your rating is good. What I'll be questioning is, are we able to pay that back? The loans that we have, are we servicing them properly? And that is how you build somebody's rating. So in matters infrastructure, I think it may come big. I'm just alluding to this fact that it may come big, and actually I think they may preach it more than we saw in 2013.
They're already using it. I'll come to Nerima and I'll come to you, but first I'm told Dan Mule is ready for us. Dan, good afternoon from Ndumberi. I know it's about the anti-drug and this report. Last year we had a similar report. I can't properly remember the content, but if you could give us the highlights of what we expect from this function today.
Thank you, Mijungu. A good morning to you from Ndumberi here in Kiambu County. And actually, I'll be joining the chairperson of NACADA shortly, and he'll be giving us the breakdown of what happened last year and what to expect this year, because the function is right underway as we speak right now. And the theme for this year is Listen First. And they believe that for us to curb things to do with drug abuse, we have to listen first, to listen to the children and to the youth as a first step to help them grow healthy and safe. So it's all about International Day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking, popularly known as IDAD, and it is organized by the National Agency for Campaign Against Drug Abuse, NACADA. And today is the day that is commemorated all over the world, and usually the United Nations body that deals with drug abuse gives a report about the drug trafficking situation as well as the drug abuse situation in the entire world. And we'll be having the statistics about the situation here in Kenya and the challenges they are facing in fighting drug abuse as well as fighting the illicit drug traffickers. And we know that in NACADA we've been having some situation whereby initially the former chairperson John Mutu had raised some issues to do with some claims that there was some money laundering by some cartels that maybe were aiding, maybe stopping or challenging that fight against drug abuse, and that's one of the things that we'll be talking about. So I've been invited the chairperson, Lieutenant Colonel retired Julius Gidiri. Briefly tell us what this day is all about and what to expect from this function today.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. We are today in Kiambu, Ndumberi, to commemorate the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. This is an international day that has been dedicated worldwide, where we join the rest of the world to put our stand very clearly that we are partnering with them in terms of fighting the issue of alcohol abuse and illicit trafficking. So we are happy to be out of Nairobi for the first time. And as you have indicated, the main focus this year is our youth, because that's where the main problem is. We have got a lot of young people, currently estimated at about 2.5 million, who are addicted to all sorts of drugs. And our situation is a little bit complex because we have got issues of alcohol, we have got issues of bang, miraa, we have issues of hard drugs, heroin and cocaine. So our issue is quite complex. And
before you continue, Chair, according to the reports by the United Nations, the UNODC that deals with drug abuse, they say that around 190,000 people lose their lives every year because of matters arising from drug abuse. What is the situation in Kenya about the fight against drug abuse?
I would say that our situation is currently quite stable, although we will be releasing the figures in a separate session on the actual situation. But our main focus and our main worry and right now is on the youth, and that's where we are interested in. We are interested in looking at what's happening in schools. We are interested in looking at what's happening to the young people in communities. So our main focus is to ensure that the parents and the teachers join in this particular fight so that they can create the necessary awareness, so that they can engage with the youth, so that they can have a discussion on why do people think it is cool to continue abusing alcohol. Why do they think it's cool to smoke shisha and other things that we find ourselves engaged in? So we need that discussion because we are telling them that whatever decision that they make, there are consequences to whatever those decisions. And we are saying that prevention is better than cure.
And perhaps maybe before even you get to that prevention, because we've had cases whereby some of the youths have been arrested because of drug abuse and such kind of matters. But we have not had any of these big guns arrested, these people who take part in the drug trafficking. Why is it hard to follow the chain to get to those people and arrest them?
That's not true. People imagine that there must be a big name behind it. It's not the arrest that we're worried about as Nakada. It is that young man who innocently started something that he thought it was cool, and he started abusing alcohol, or he's in hard drugs. It is those young people in Mombasa who are now victims that we are worried about, because young people have dreams, and we are telling them that drugs kill those dreams. They have talents, they want to succeed in their lives, and therefore it starts as an innocent activity, but eventually we can see the consequences. So that's where our main focus is. But the issue of enforcement is a government issue. We have a whole police unit that is in charge of anti-narcotics. They are doing a fantastic job. I think we saw the reports yesterday, 4.5 million arrested from a Nigerian. So a lot of work is being done. We may not appreciate it, but at the end of the day, we are telling the parents, we are telling the community, we need to say no. Because public participation is now enshrined in the Constitution. So they have the voice to say that we don't want a bar here, we don't want this particular activity in our neighborhood. And the day we will have a buy-in from the community, from the parents, from the teachers, then we will get somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll be coming back to you for more on this when in our 1 p.m. bulletin. That's it for now. From this point, we'll be waiting to have them release officially the statistics for this year's report that will be released in a short while, and we'll be bringing that to you in our 1 p.m. bulletin. And maybe by then, they'll have launched the report for this year, and we'll have more details on what is actually happening. And then we'll be posting some of those questions to get to know exactly what should be done to make sure that this vice of drug abuse becomes a matter of the past in Kenya, because it's one of the challenges that is facing the current situation in the country right now. And also the things to do with corruption have been blamed for the failure to have this vice taken away from the youth in this country. Remember, the theme for this year is Listen First, and we'll be coming to you with more on that at 1 p.m. Back to you, Ken.
Right, Mule, let's listen first also here to entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be coming to wrap this up. But first, I'm told we have to lighten the news a little, and Kimani Mbugua is already here with some entertainment. Kimani?
Yes, Ken, it's been a big entertainment weekend, biggest for black people, as this year's...
Let's conclude on infrastructure and then talk about housing and how that is going to impact. So let me go with Nerima first on infrastructure. You think it's going to work for them this time?
I believe what's going to be important for them is the messaging in terms of how the SGR, for instance, or roads or ICT, those improvements are going to get to them wananchi, how it's impacting their lives. Because at the moment, the Kenyan people are really feeling pinched in terms of the expenses or food prices and no jobs. I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about, even our healthcare system. But the government or any administration just needs to have a listening ear to the population. And that's something that's going to be very important with their messaging and how to bring that across relatably.
Okay, and the questions of why would you focus on infrastructure when we're still hungry will not suffice on this. You think it won't suffice? Or it's a huge thing for Kenyans?
It's a huge thing for Kenyans because as earlier Gabriel had mentioned about someone in Kitale and how transport has assisted him as a businessman. But then when you talk to people who are not necessarily in business, what about them? And how has this impacted them as an individual? So those are the questions that they need to answer just so that they could have a listening ear from the public.
Okay.
But if they continue mentioning these roads, and I think we just saw perhaps a bridge has fallen, you know, that was just launched. And, you know, you begin to wonder, how is this impacting me? And all that money, we're seeing 1.2 billion, you know, that has gone just like that.
Okay.
And so those are some of the things that I believe the
So
administration
the
will have to
messaging
face.
will be key in this. And Daisy, push to expand connections or to electricity, particularly in rural areas. You saw when the president went to launch some connections in some parts of the country, he was attacked and said, why would you connect a grass-thatched house to electricity? And this is what they're still pushing for. So for them, it's vital, it's important, and it's one of the things they're riding on currently on the campaign trail.
I have asked that question myself severally when I see some of the connectivity, because if people are so poor that they cannot even afford decent housing, how are they going to afford the electricity? Because this is not free electricity.
Oh yeah, by the way, it's not free
It's not
at the end
free.
of the day.
They are connecting these people to the grid, but after some time, I think they are given a 3-month grace period, after which they are going to have to start paying for that electricity. But if they are so poor that they cannot meet their basic needs, how does this help them? You know, and electricity is important in terms of spurring development. And quickly, what comes to my mind is a situation where we were in Western, in Busia one time, and the power outages were so many. And I remember that we stayed for about 2 days without power. And I thought to myself, imagine all the businesses that actually rely on power. You think about it's a fishing town, so you're talking about refrigeration. Think about it if you run a kinyozi, if you run a salon, if you run an internet cafe, if you're running a hotel. This will affect your business, because even in the hotel that we were staying in, they were running the generator, but at some point, you know, even that failed. So I think what they need to concentrate themselves on, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with providing electricity to these houses, but for me, the supply of electricity, the cost of electricity as well, even in terms of spurring development, because remember, we have seen very many companies, industries leaving Kenya, because of the cost of production. And electricity is one of those costs,
key, yes.
right? So for me, they need to address that issue, because when you talk about job creation, when you talk about providing employment for the youth, it's not going to cut it. Government can only provide so many. You are looking at industry, you're looking at agriculture.
Yeah.
Electricity is a key component within the industrial development, but the cost of electricity is also very important. So celebrating putting electricity in houses where at the end of the day people are not going to be able to afford to pay for it. For me, that is just a PR stunt. Okay,
and finally, we have to conclude with this, housing, and I'll start with Gabriel, and when we finish with the days, we'll call it a day. Just briefly, because we are out of time, address urban housing both in terms of quantity and quality, and secondly, provide safe and affordable housing. Just briefly, your comments on that.
Number one, let me start by saying the space. And I think that is what is becoming time and time again, and even as we move to the future, I think that's what's the major constraint. We don't have space, you know, unless you talk about upgrading the slums that we have. And I think there was a time there was that program. I've not heard about that. But I think if Jubilee are to get serious on urban housing, then I think they should start by ensuring that the slums that we have, you know, and actually it's not even Jubilee, it's the county government. They must pitch in to realize how do we need to invoke the money that we get from the national government so that we can at the very least come up with what you'd call decent housing. And this is, you know, every time we are talking about devolution, half of the time we are failing to actually put into question the county governments. And I think probably, and majority of the time, this is where the issues are. They are the ones overlooking, you know, the development. Let me make a very quick analytical observation. In a place like Nairobi, and if you are just to compare Nairobi with the entire of the nation, we hold probably 0.1% in the footprint. Right? So Nairobi is very tiny, where the majority of our GDP comes from. That means we are still continuing to receive more people. Let me ask you, what would happen if we replicate Nairobi as a city? Nigeria did it from Lagos to Abuja. Yeah. What if we push Nairobi and services? You're looking at building 2, 3, 4 cities. And this is why I told you we need governors who can think. So as much as we would talk about housing, there needs to be space. I mean, Ken, tell me, where do you have space in Nairobi?
All right, good question. Let me go to Narima.
Yeah, I believe it's within our social rights, Article 43 of our Constitution. So we should have access to housing, sanitation, water, education. And so those are the things that they need to focus on implementing. So in terms of urban development, I feel like we are behind, because even looking at our sewer drainage, we're using some that was developed in the 60s?
60s, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that that's something that I would be looking forward to see within the Jubilee Manifesto and how they intend to do that.
And finally, Daisy, I know I'm rushing you because we're out of time.
Yes, I think within urban housing, one of the things they must address themselves to is the quality. We have seen too many buildings collapsing, which means people are cutting corners, people are endangering the lives of people. We need to see proper urban planning, you know, because the haphazard nature of the way development is taking place around the country, Nairobi, around the country, it is very messy, and it is not geared towards ensuring that we provide the necessary infrastructure or housing, at least housing and development for the people. The issue of water, you cannot talk about housing and not mention water. Already we have a serious problem around provision of water services to homes, right? Okay. So how are they going to address this issue? So I think that the electricity supply, the sewage as well, because we've seen that those are not issues that are taken into consideration when it comes to housing. So even as they talk about affordability, they must tell us about the quality of this housing. They must tell us about how they plan to address some of the critical issues right now that we are facing, right? Okay. Whereby we already have we have a crunch in terms of housing, a serious shortage, but already the ones that are there, the quality is endangering the safety of the residents. Okay. But let me say one thing before you close.
Yes, in 10
seconds.
Notice
that Jubilee have said nothing about women. Okay. Jubilee failed massively in their 2013 manifesto and in keeping with the Constitution to address the issue of the 2/3. They remain silent. So for me, as long as Jubilee are content to continue to marginalize over half of their population, I really don't think that Jubilee are serious about developing the country, because they must address themselves to this issue of women and women's participation in politics, economy, and social in the social spheres. And they have failed to do that. They are completely
from 2013. All right. I have to cut you short. Thank you, Daisy, Rima, and Gabriel for speaking to us. I know this is a topic that we can have a whole day to discuss. Yes. And we still indeed will have time to discuss this, because the manifesto going to the election is still very important. Thank you very much for coming and sharing. We had a split screen from Kasarani. We've just exited that, but we're going to be speaking to Andrew Chieng, who is at Kasarani, in the next few minutes or so to update us on what's happening in Kasarani. And of course, we have other stories also making headlines. Remember, it's Eid Mubarak and guys are celebrating. So we're going to talk all about that in the next hour, in about 6 to 5 minutes or so. But stay with NTV Today. A special thanks to my guests here. And you have a good afternoon. And stay with NTV Today. We'll be back shortly. Right, welcome back to NTV Today. My name is Ken Mijungu, and as you celebrate at home, please bring me some lunch because I'm still here. And of course, we have other stories making headlines at this hour. Now, a bridge that was being constructed at a cost of 1.2 billion shillings in Budalangi constituency in the county of Busia has collapsed. Sigiri Bridge, which was being constructed by a Chinese company, was expected to link several rural areas, markets, schools and hospitals within the constituency. The bridge, one of the Jubilee government flagship projects, has collapsed just 2 weeks after President Uhuru Kenyatta inspected it. While conducting the inspection, President Kenyatta noted that the bridge will significantly reduce the number of deaths in the area. It's not clear yet what caused the bridge to collapse. Sigiri Bridge was designed to enable people cross the river Nzoia, where several people had died in the past while attempting to get across. Before the collapse, the bridge was 90% done and was expected to be operational from next month. All right, three Mombasa County gubernatorial candidates met and embraced today in a rare show of unity when they attended the Eid prayers at the Ronald Ngala Primary School grounds. Governor Ali Hassan Joho, who's been out of the country, Suleiman Shabal of Jubilee and Hassan Omar of Wiper Party joined Chief Qadi Sheikh Hamid Muqdar and hundreds of Muslims in the early morning prayers, which mark the beginning of Eid al-Fitr celebrations. Now, leaders who spoke, however, steered clear of politics, emphasizing on the need to remain united and peaceful. On his part, Hassan Omar asked Muslims in the county, including the National Assembly Majority Leader Aiden Duale, to respect the Chief Qadi even if they do not agree with his decisions on Eid. The Chief Qadi had on Saturday announced that the celebrations had to be today because the moon had not been sighted as expected. Other faithful flocked various mosques and open grounds for prayers in different parts of Mombasa and the coast region.
Watu wanaoshindania viti vya kisiasa washindane kwa moyo wa ukunjufu na moyo wa riadha. Anayeshinda ashinde, anayeshindwa akubali pia kushinda, ili tuendelee kuishi kwa sababu sote ndio tunajenga nchi.
Na ndugu yangu Aden Duale asiwe tu kila wakati anarusha maneno kwa mtu yoyote kwa msingi yoyote. Chief Qadi wetu si mwanaharakati wa Jubilee wala mwanaharakati wa NASA. Chief Qadi wetu ni taasisi ya uongozi wa Kiislamu. Hata kama amekosea, kuna namna za kumkosoa, sio kumrushia maneno ya kikosa heshima, asijui ignore him na nini. Kila mtu katika nchi hii ana nafasi yake.
All right, in the meantime, Governor Ali Hassan Joho is holding an Eid Baraza at the Treasury Square. We're now joined live by our reporter on the ground, Peter Mwangangi, who's covering the Baraza. Peter, good afternoon once again. Good to see you. And I see you are also celebrating Eid, but you're at work. Tell us more about this Baraza, which is an annual event. I remember the one for last year, the exchanges between Ali Hassan and the Marwa, and that's probably something that is not expected this time round, but they are driving the peace message. What else are we hearing from them today?
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, already several leaders have already started addressing. We have about 3 members of parliament have already addressed the residents here. We had Omar Mwinyi, that is a sitting member of parliament for Changamwe, as well as Rashid Bezimba, that is a member of parliament for Kisauni. And right now, and we also had Badi Twalib of Jomvu constituency, and now who is the one addressing residents here is on my right, if Karim can just pan to my right, is Mishi Mboko, who has been the woman representative here in Mombasa County, but she's now seeking the Likoni constituency seat on an ODM party ticket. Many of the aspirants here, or rather candidates who are attending this particular event, are from the Orange Democratic Party, or rather leaders who are seen to be allied to the governor of Mombasa, Hassan Ali Joho. They are the ones who are attending this function, and already they have already started addressing a number of issues that have been affected that have been affecting residents here in Mombasa County. And key among them are Ken Mijungu. We've seen about 2 speakers addressing the issue of insecurity. There have been an issue about young people being involved in crime, especially here in Old Town, which is not very far from where I'm standing right now, as well as in Kisauni areas. And last night, actually, in Old Town area, angry members of parliament, angry members of the public confronted one suspected criminal, and they killed him. That suspect is known as Mohammed Bobocha, and these are some of the issues they are talking about. They are saying they are not satisfied with what the government, or rather the authorities, have been doing in terms of addressing insecurity. So that is one of the biggest issues being addressed right now by the leaders in security, as well as the representation of Muslims in the national government. And they are saying the National Super Alliance coalition will be the answer to some of the issues that have been affecting Muslims as a community, as well as the coast region in particular. Ken?
All right, Mwangangi, that's very important, and especially at this time. And talk to us also about the messaging, the kind of message they're trying to pass, especially on peace and during this particular time and even after the general election.
Kama Wakenya, mahali popote tunaweza kuishi, na hapa ni kwa kila mtu hapa Mombasa County.
During this time and obviously after the general election, especially the ones touching on peace.
Sense defeat, wamejua watashindwa, wanataka kuleta ile hofu.
I think Peter Mwangangi cannot hear us from studio, but we'll try and get Peter even later. But he'll be reporting from that Eid Baraza, which is an annual event held by the authorities in that county. And several people are in attendance, the 3 gubernatorial candidates. We have a lot of other leaders, including the Chief Kadhi, who's attending that. So we'll try and get Mwangangi. But moving on, let's also talk about something else that is happening now. 42 days to the next general election. And as such, the main political parties are lining up to make public their manifestos in a bid toward the electorate. First up today is the Jubilee Party that is expected to unveil its manifesto today at Kasarani Stadium. We heard from Andrew that about 7 p.m. or thereabout. Now, the manifesto is said to be leaning heavily on job creation, education, health, and food security, among other key pillars, all of which resemble the 7 pledges of the Jubilee Coalition made to Kenyans in 2013. Gladys Gashanja looks through the list to what to expect, and if at all, the Jubilee government has lived up to any of its promises in the last 5 years.
It has been 5 years since the Jubilee Coalition stood in unison at the Kasarani Sports Complex and promised Kenyans to deliver on 7 key pledges touching on a safe Kenya, transformational leadership, a food-secure Kenya, empowering the youth, water and electricity for all, a healthy Kenya, and social justice. With the general election around the corner, the Jubilee Coalition, now Jubilee Party, will be returning to the same venue with more or less the same script, similar cast. On the 2017 manifesto list is food security. Here, the party intends to boost agricultural production as well as increase arable acreage through irrigation. Although the government has played a key role in reviving the ailing Mumias Sugar Company, the government was caught flat-footed by the ravaging drought that affected most parts of the country, resulting to massive losses of livestock, crops, and in some cases, lives. The ripple effects of the drought have been felt on the ground, with the latest being a scarcity of maize in the country that has in turn translated to lack of unga on the shelves.
There are lessons which have been learned. There are mistakes which have taken place.
The other pledge making the list on the manifesto is health, where Jubilee promises to continue giving support for maternity and maternal health. The party also promises to roll out free medical cover for citizens above 70 years. Kenyan mothers have enjoyed the introduction of free maternity and maternal health care, with the number of deaths during childbirth reducing significantly. In the same breath, the health sector has also witnessed the most strikes during the Jubilee administration, with the longest strike being that of doctors that lasted 100 days. The nurses' strike is ongoing and clinical officers are threatening to go on strike in the coming days. Job creation makes it to the manifesto list. Here, the Jubilee Party targets to create lots of jobs for the youth, including an 18-month internship program for TVET and university graduates. All this in greater partnership with the county governments. This is what replaced the 2013 pledge to build industrial hubs in all counties with workshops and ICT facilities. The youth have been great beneficiaries of the Youth and Wezo funds, continuing to offer many an opportunity to access capital for investments and business. However, the NYS scandal that saw billions of shillings misappropriated from the project goes on record as being one of the biggest scandals to rock the Jubilee government. Education is a key pillar in the Jubilee 2017 manifesto, where the party plans to launch the free secondary education program from January 2018. Continued focus on higher education, especially TVETs and university, is on that list. Those free laptops to every Class 1 pupil promised by the Jubilee Coalition in 2013 were reduced to tablets, with the gadgets currently only available in selected schools across the country. The party is also focusing on the expansion of school infrastructure to ensure secondary schools have the capacity to accommodate more students.
When we ensure that every child born in this country who is in primary school goes into high school, that will be transformative. It has not happened in the last 50-something years. It is what has defined the difference between Kenya and South Korea, Kenya and Singapore, Kenya and Malaysia.
The Jubilee Party intends to continue putting emphasis on expanding connections to electricity, particularly in rural areas, and the completion of the second phase of the SGR, that is, connection to Uganda. Though great strides have been made in connecting more households, the cost of electricity is still high, with some parts of the country still grappling with frequent power blackouts. The first phase of the SGR project from Mombasa to Nairobi has been completed and already news amidst criticism of being overly expensive. The second phase that will connect to Uganda is on hold due to conservationists going to court to block the rail from passing through the Nairobi National Park. A plan to address human housing issues both in terms of quantity and quality, that is giving affordable, safe housing, is also on the Jubilee Party's agenda this year. The rising cost of housing has rendered many people homeless, hence increasing the number of street children and families. The increase of urban dwellers has also reflected on the need to increase housing, and with it, the need to address perennial water shortage, especially in the capital city. Lack of clean water has left many susceptible to waterborne diseases, such like cholera. The Jubilee Party intends to continue making government services more accessible to all Kenyans and also making the government more accountable to Kenyans. This sticks out as the biggest hurdle for the Jubilee administration, with major corruption scandals including the NYS, Ministry of Health, Eurobond sagas reported during its tenure. These cases, among others, have put Kenya on the map as being one of the most corrupt in the world. However, the Huduma centers set up by the administration have brought services closer to the people and increased access to government services, a far cry from the past. 7 pledges are what the Jubilee Party is articulating to the electorate against the performance of a similar 7 from the 2013 manifesto. Gladys Gashanja, NTV.
And the Jubilee Party is set to unveil that manifesto that Gladys is speaking about later today at the Kasarani Sports Complex. The manifesto is said to be leaning heavily on job creation, education, health, food security, among other key pillars, all of which resemble the 7 pledges of the Jubilee Coalition made to Kenyans in 2013. Remember, it's only Ngilu who's missing from that list when they launched it. And we're now joined by Andrew Cheng, who is at Kasarani waiting, and he has a long wait. Andrew, good afternoon. And we now know, you reported earlier that the launch is expected to begin at around 7 p.m. We have the highlights. What else could you tell us about this manifesto and the kind of arrangements that are going on at Kasarani?
Well, thank you, Ken. If you can see behind me, it's just the final preparations that are going on here. The decor is being set. If you can see behind me, the screens have already been set. The podium is ready. The walkway right here for the president when he comes in. So everything has been set here. Well, all that is waiting probably now is for the event to begin. We understand that what is going to happen is that there will be all the cabinet secretaries will of course be there, and it will not just be a launch of a manifesto of what the government or what the Jubilee Party intends to do if it gets to power in the next 5 years. What will happen is that there will also be a track record given by the respective cabinet secretaries who will be allowed to talk and who will be giving speeches on what they've done and going forward what they intend to do, and there will also be panelists asking them questions, finding out what they intend to do going forward, and then finally is when the president will speak after all of them, all the cabinet secretaries and the deputy president has spoken, and the president is expected, as I mentioned earlier, to arrive here at 7 o'clock in the evening, but some of those things will probably happen before or after the president has arrived at this venue. So that is one of the most important things we've learned so far, is that it will not just be a launch of a manifesto, but it will also be giving the track record of what it has managed to achieve so far. Remember, in all the campaigns that we've covered of Jubilee, they've been talking about the track record, and they've been so persistent, and they've actually been dismissing the opposition, saying that leaders of the opposition have been in power for so long. I remember the deputy president saying that combined the leaders of the opposition have been in power for 100 years, and they claim that they have been in power for only 5 years, and they've managed to do so much, including building the standard gauge railway, the free maternity care, and all the things that they have managed to do. So the track record will be one of the key things that they'll be selling to the voters and selling to the audience that will be here, as well as launching a manifesto and telling Kenyans what are the new things they intend to do going forward. We've seen the banners, we've seen the placards already being put in strategic places. Some of the things, the merchandise that the audience will be using, and even outside the decor has been arranged, just waiting for the launch to begin anytime from now. Ken?
That's indeed everything is happening the right time, and it's obviously a little bit curious, but again the explanation that the CSs will be there, it means what Jubilee is taking this opportunity, Andrew, to showcase what they have done in the last 4.5 and making a case for 5. But importantly, Andrew, is the messaging and what they are really talking about. I learned earlier from you, Andrew, that on the campaign trail they haven't been speaking about two things. One is women, and secondly is about food. Do you expect these things to feature prominently in their launch today?
Well, I don't get what you mean by when you're talking about women, but they have been talking about the free maternity care, and they've been persistent on that messaging that it is the Jubilee government. Remember, when it came into power, the first thing that they said was that from the day they got into power, anybody who was going to deliver in a public hospital would be given that free of charge. Well, there have been some challenges with that with the county governments, but it is there, and that has been happening, and they have been very persistent with that. They've also not, in the campaigns, they've not been talking about food security, they've not been talking about unga, but what I've seen is from them mainly in their strongholds that they've not been talking about this. They've been mainly persistent on the messaging of going forward, the track record that they have been set, and the infrastructure projects that they've done. They've been talking about SGR, they've been talking about the free maternity care, they've been talking about the title deeds, they've been talking about 5 roads. In Meru County alone, the president commissioned the construction of 5 roads. He gave out hundreds and thousands of title deeds in Nyeri, in Meru, and in all these places. So while they've been missing some of the subjects, they've been trying to hype some of the most successful ones, and they've not really been talking about some of the ones which failed, like irrigation in Meru, which is a very agricultural area. In so many of these places, there was no mention of agriculture. So they've been hyping some of those that worked, and they've been not really talking about some of those that didn't really work well for them. And one of them is food security, the cost of living, the price of unga, the availability of that unga also.
All right, Andrew, when we talk about women, I had a panel in studio and they mentioned that in President Uhuru's government, we have 5 out of 22. I'm not sure, but one of them mentioned that only 5 women out of the 22. And you remember, because we covered this extensively, the case where the president was sued over 2/3, you know, and they say there has not been a definite space for women in the Jubilee government. So perhaps that is one thing that we want to look at. And finally for you, in terms of the messaging once again, they have sort of inverted the manifesto from what we had last time. Would you know why this is happening, or perhaps priorities have changed, or they've been listening to the voices of Kenyans? Because if you look at what was key the other time and what's key right now, food security comes right at the top, Andrew.
Well, it's definitely probably because that is what the voters are talking about at the moment. Many people have been saying, if you look at the opposition has dismissed some of the grand projects going on, and they've been saying that well, it is well and good for them to be there, but they can't be used when people are hungry, when people can't afford basic commodities like food and basic other basic commodities. So of course it would be prudent for them to talk about the things that are really affecting the ordinary mwananchi, and that the ordinary mwananchi care about, and that is food security, things like education, social welfare. They've been really hyping the issue of giving the welfare, that the money that is disbursed to vulnerable children and poor people. These are some of the issues that they've been hyping and really talking about whenever they go to the grassroots in the campaigns. And from what we have seen, the giving of the title deeds, the social issues that really affect ordinary people are what they've been persistent on, as well as hyping the grand infrastructure projects that they've managed to accomplish so far. But they've also been talking about the real social issue that affect the people. One of the issues that they've been talking about again is the continuing the construction of the Thika Highway going forward all the way to Nanyuki and Isiolo. So that's another grand project that they made a promise to do when they were in Nyeri, and Nyeri specifically, when they talked about moving the Thika Highway from Thika, moving it all the way forward past Nyeri to Nanyuki and Isiolo. So as much as they've been talking about the social issues, they've also been talking about extending some of these issues that have been happening before, extending the SGR, extending the Thika Road, and starting more construction of small roads in this particular counties, Ken.
Andrew, thank you very much. Andrew Cheng reporting live from Kasarani. We'll have the launch of the Jubilee Manifesto later on. He says at around 7 p.m. We'll definitely be looking forward to that. They're just first among other political parties who will be going with the launch going forward. We have only 42 days left to the election. Now, Jubilee leaders from Mandera have dared their competitors in the Economic Freedom Party to withdraw their support for President Uhuru Kenyatta as they seek votes in the county. Speaking at a press conference this morning, the leaders led by the county's Governor Ali Roberts said that the Economic Party team was giving empty threats of ditching President Kenyatta in the run-up to the election. According to them, it will be very difficult to sell any other candidate in the county that voted overwhelmingly for the Jubilee Party back in 2013. Now, the leaders that represented most of the clans that make up Mandera also took issue with the claims from the party that about 50,000 people were missing from the voters' register.
The political threats given by EFP in relation to Jubilee, which repeatedly the irrelevant Senator Bill Okero, who has no political footing in Mandera, in giving threats against Jubilee, saying we will decamp, is nothing but a hoax. It's only for their own political survival that they ended up pleading to support President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. They tried to dare, they have abused the president in public, the deputy president, and us, the Jubilee leadership, many times. We've dared them to attempt to go to any other party. We know the ground is very hostile for any other political party, and we believe with conviction that they will not sell any other presidential candidate other than Uhuru Kenyatta in Mandera.
We witnessed over the last 12 months, through propaganda, through social media, through public forums, utterances that border on incitement to violence. We are not new to violence in Mandera. The year 2012-2013, we witnessed a lot of bloodshed of our people, which was brought about by utterances similar to what is taking place today. Ethnicity was promoted to a level whereby hatred was built and we shed blood. We want to assure the people of Mandera and the people of Kenya that is history. We will stand firm. And when I'm speaking like this, behind me is a representation of the people of Mandera, of all, and I repeat, of all the different communities of Mandera.
All right, that was a tough press conference. Let's see the response from Bilokero and his team, and we'll bring that to you also. Now, hundreds of anti-drug warriors have convened in Ndumberi to mark this day. At the same time, the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime is scheduled to release the World Drug Report 2017, which gives highlights of the global drugs abuse situation and trends. We are now joined live by Daniel Mule, who is covering that live from Ndumberi. Good afternoon, Dan. And we spoke earlier. The function is well underway. What more has been said?
Diversity and inclusion, and especially when it comes to areas of women.
Thank you, Ken. Actually, we spoke earlier, and the situation is still the same. The NACADA hasn't released any statistics yet, but they have said they are going to be releasing the statistics on a later date to show the situation of drug abuse and drug or illicit drug trafficking in the country, and they'll be doing that on a much later date. But today, as you said, it's the day that the country is commemorating the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, popularly known as IDADA, and it's a day used to recognize the severe impact that illicit drugs have to the health in the country, to the development in the country, as well as to the peace and security of the country. And they are going to talk about a number of things, and the function is underway. It's time for speeches. Different guests have been invited to speak, but I'm joined by the chairperson here, maybe for one or two questions. This is Lieutenant Colonel retired Julius Githeri, who is the chairperson of NACADA for now. We talked to you earlier, and you said NACADA is more interested in making sure that they help the youth who've already been addicted to get out of their addiction, rather than arresting those people who have been trafficking the drugs in the country. So whose mandate is that, to do the arrest to those people who've been trafficking the drugs in the country?
The actual enforcement and arrest of any drug traffickers is a responsibility of the IG, and we have a special police unit, the anti-narcotics unit, that is responsible for coordinating and executing the operations that take place in Kenya. So for us as NACADA, our job is prevention, and at the same time we deal with rehabilitation and treatment. We support all the stakeholders who are responsible with the treatment and rehabilitation at different levels. So we are involved through the entire cycle of prevention, education, and of course rehabilitation and treatment.
Okay, initially you said that we have like 2.5 million youth in Kenya who are affected by drug abuse and the likes. And are you happy about the situation so far of rehabilitating these people and also the situation of fighting the drug traffickers?
Not at all. We are not happy. We would like to see the numbers going lower. And that's why we are currently working with all the stakeholders who are even here with us during this commemoration. We are working with the county governments. As you may appreciate, devolution, when it came, the issue of licensing, it became a devolved function. So we have to work very closely with the county governments who are responsible for licensing to bring down the number of outlets, because it's not about revenue. It's about dealing with the people. It's about dealing with a social problem. We are also working quite closely with the county governments in terms of education and awareness. We are working with the Ministry of Education, who are also represented in the board, in terms of accessing schools, in terms of ensuring the issue of alcohol and drug abuse becomes a part of the life skill curriculum.
Okay, sorry, just to cut you short because of time, I know, just for the last question, I know many have been blaming the NACADA because maybe they don't understand their mandate, or they think NACADA is the one that is responsible for the situation in the country right now. I know the licensing body functions were devolved to the counties. Who can you blame? Is it the anti-narcotics department? Is it the police? Is it NACADA? Who is to blame for the situation right now? And what should be done to ensure that we arrest the situation in Kenya as far as drug abuse is concerned?
Let me say that the issue of alcohol and drug abuse and illicit trafficking is a holistic approach. It's not any one of us. It's a question of how well we are able to work with all the stakeholders, the communities, the county governments, all leaders at all levels. It is a multi-sectoral approach. So it's not a single person, it's how well we are able to work at all levels.
So are we just marking this day today, or we are celebrating, looking at the situation?
We are taking, as much as we are commemorating, we are taking stock of where we are. We are ensuring that we build our partnerships and collaboration. We are ensuring that tell the parents, we tell our cousins and brothers that we are in this together. It is that collaboration that we are looking for, so that we can talk to each other. NACADA is the voice. It is the shoulder to lean on when the worst comes to the worst. So we need to build that trust with the parents, with the schools, with the community, so that they know that NACADA has even got a hotline, 1192, where each and everybody has access to, can call us, can tell us what is happening, can report something that he's not happy about. 1192 is our hotline number to ensure that we are talking to the people. Our approach is down upwards, to ensure that we talk to the community, we talk to our sisters, we talk with our brothers, and we tell them that they need to trust NACADA, to educate them, to give them the knowledge, to tell them what's going on. And that's what we intend to achieve.
Thank you very much. There you have it, Ken, in studio. That was the chairperson of NACADA, retired Lieutenant Colonel Julius Githiri, talking about the situation in the country right now as far as drug abuse is concerned, saying they are not happy about the situation and the fight against drug abuse, but they're saying that we have the anti-narcotics department, we have the police who should be doing the policing work to make sure that they arrest those people who've been involved in drug trafficking. And NACADA is just there to ensure that they talk to people who have already been addicted, to make sure that they help them in rehabilitation and bringing them back to a development state in their lives. So that's it for now. Still following up to see how the situation goes, but they have said they're not going to release any statistics about the situation in the country at the moment, and they'll be doing it at a later date, which I believe they will invite us to listen to the statistics and to get to know exactly what is happening in the country at the moment. But he says the arrests being done in the country at the moment is something to be happy about, to believe that something is being done about the situation. So still following up with this, Ken.
Thank you, Dan Mule, reporting live from Ndumberi, where the NACADA hosting the event for this year, and they're not going to release the results. We'll get that to you on the drug situation in Kenya. Now, moving on to Mombasa now, a suspected criminal from the Mombasa's Old Town area who had been listed as one of the suspects was last evening killed by an angry mob. Now, the man popularly known as Mohamed Bobocha was confronted by members of the public after allegedly being involved in a theft incident at Mkanyangeni area. Residents say he stabbed and robbed a person of their belongings before taking off, but the residents chased him and cornered him near the ocean. Meanwhile, an elderly man suspected of harboring criminals in Old Town area was arrested on Saturday evening. Mombasa Deputy County Commissioner, Mohammed Salim, issued a stern warning that police will deal firmly with anyone engaging in criminal activities. And Embu County Governor Nyaga Wambora has asked the voters from the county to vote him back as their governor so that he can finish the development projects he began and he is yet to accomplish in his first term. The governor says the numerous attempts to impeach him slow down his development agenda and blame the impeachment on his political enemies. He promised to ensure that he holds an investment forum in December if he is re-elected to woo back investors. He says they fled due to impeachment talk. He spoke during a church service attended by his political opponent from the same seat, Leonard Muriuki. And the government of India says it will continue assisting Kenya in strengthening the health sector. Speaking when she attended the Festival of Chariots, which is a key pillar for the Hindu community, the Indian High Commissioner to Kenya, Suchirat Durai, said some of the cancer equipment her county had promised to donate to Kenya were already in use at the Kenyatta National Hospital. The elaborate ceremony, celebrated once in a year, starts with the adoration at the temple where the congregants meet to party and dance as they worship. Those who proclaim to the faith come in at different times to pay homage as they plan to take Lord Krishna, who is an emblem of peace, around the city for about 30 kilometers to attract those who do not go to the temple to do so. The Festival of Chariots, as it is referred to, marries with the country's theme of holding elections in August. Those in attendance have called for peaceful election.
It's a state-of-the-art teletherapy machine. It's already been installed. The simulator is in the last stages of being checked out, and we are hoping that soon it will be formally commissioned, and almost 200 cancer patients per day can get treatment in this machine. It has been used widely in India, and we have also supplied it to a few other foreign countries. So it's very much on course.
It's very important for all Hindus and all believers. And Lord Jagannath means the Lord of the universe, as the God, and we all know God is one, and He created all of us. The religions are many, maybe, but the objective is same. So in the name of religion, don't criticize others. We never applied which religion, which parents, which race, which tribe, which country will be born. It is the God who sent us.
And still across the border and in Asia, Pakistani officials say the death toll from a massive fuel truck fire that the previous day has risen to 158 as 4 more victims of the fire died overnight. The truck is said to have veered off the road when the driver lost control.
Officials from a local hospital say the number of deaths may rise further, as 40 out of the about 100 injured people are in critical condition. A total of 75 motorbikes and 6 vehicles, including
64 Men's World Boxing Champions in Germany from August 25th to September 3rd by the virtue of reaching the semi-finals. Now, the team will return home in 2 groups, the first touching down on Monday evening. And Monday evening is indeed today evening. Now, Kenya Premier League sides Gor Mahia, Tusker FC, Ulinzi Stars, Sofapaka, Nzoia Sugar and Nakumatt FC are among the teams that advanced to the round of 32 of the Go TV Shield after registering wins in their respective fixtures in the round of 64. Now, KPL champions Tusker overpowered SS Sad 5-0 at the Mbaraki Sports Club, while Nzoia beat Bondo United 2-0 at the Moi Stadium in Kisumu. Brian Yakama and Benjamin Mutuma netting the Sugar Mailers goals. Now, Gor Mahia saw off Nairobi Water 3-1 with Medi Kagere, George Odhiambo and defender Wellington Ocheng scoring for Kogalo. Bernard Mangoli scored in his debut for Sofapaka as Batoto Bamungu thrashed Division 2 side Silver Bullet 9-1 in Machakos. Ulinzi defeated Wajiji FC by a solitary goal and scored by Enos Ochieng. In other results of the day, Laser beat Butterfly FC 2-1. NSL side Nakuru All-Stars were eliminated 3-0 by Division 1 side Eldoret Youth FC, while Nakumatt FC stunned Bigota FC 8-2. And Nairobi clubs dominated the National Open Taekwondo Championship at Visa Oshwal Academy in Mombasa County. Shoko Club from Nairobi emerged overall champion with 6 gold and 2 silver medals, while another Nairobi side, Mirema School, bagged 3 gold, 7 silver and 8 bronze medals for the second place. Now, Mombasa Mikindani Club was third with 2 gold and 3 bronze. In selected results, Willis Odhiambo of Shoka defeated Mark Munywa in the boys 9-10 age group final. Dong Thiongo of Mirema beat Shoko's Joseph Ochieng in the 11-12 age group final. In the girls 7-8 age group category, Mweleso Mwijaji of Shoko dismissed Mirema's Kadi Wangeshi in the final. Now, Nairobi Schools and Colleges Taekwondo Association says the one-day tournament was part of the Nation Series, from which 68 juniors and seniors will be selected for the Windmill Open Championship in Netherlands next month. Now, Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo won a chaotic Azerbaijan Grand Prix with Formula One champion leader Sebastian Vettel finishing 4th after being penalized for swerving into rival Lewis Hamilton, who finished 5th. Hamilton's Mercedes teammate, that is Pirelli Bottas, finished 2nd over overcoming